Well, we welcome you into the second match of this MLC Champions Open, and what a start, what a day it's been so far. A high-scoring encounter in match number 1, which saw the Kingsmen win against the Atlanta Fire by some 22 runs. And now in match number 2, we get a look at the other two teams and the tons of talent we have on display here. Brian Walters alongside me at this tournament, and of course, all these players, about 60 of them competing for really the interest of the scouts of the 6 franchises of the Major League who are here in attendance and will be picking next week Sunday. So in the toss, Samp Army won the toss and opted to bat first. A contrast to what we saw earlier in the day, where the winning captain of the toss chose to bowl. Brian, what can we expect from this matchup?
I think you take the pitch out of the equation because any demons that you saw from it being moist earlier on, I think that has been gone. And with overcast conditions, I think it's going to play pretty true between now and the end of the match. So I don't think it matters much whether you bowled or batted first. More so it's up to the preference of the captain. And so the captain for the Samp Army choosing to have a bat. Ali Shafiq with the new ball in hand. And I think he'll be one to watch for. Good, pacey, accurate bowler. Maybe not quite the pace that you saw in the first match from Corny Dry, but a very good bowler in his own right. And I expect that you'll see from David White, who is the opener, who's currently standing at the non-strikers end.
And Lahir Malant at the other end. So not an easy opening pair to bowl to if you are the UMMC Knight Riders. But just on this surface, I think, as you can see from the first game, it is pretty high scoring. Had 181 and then 159 being scored. But you haven't had that sunshine to sort of drought the surface, so you will still get that variable bounce. But batters, once you can deal with that, you still can cash in. It's a quick outfield. You can use the sides, smaller dimensions. And these two know all about scoring runs in the middle. They've both scored the most runs for their respective franchises. First delivery underway here at the Prairie View. Starts outside the off stump, has to re-bowl it. You look at this Samp Army team, Brian, I think I'm very close to saying they could be the strongest team in this tournament. 4 top 10 run scores from the minor league season in this lineup.
Not only that, and as you would expect with several of these teams, there's a lot of varied experience, but there's from top to bottom, they're just match winners all the way down the lineup. So I think I agree with you that if they're not the most talented team in this entire lineup, they're one of the top 2, I think.
See Ali Shafiq just trying to push the ball across. Again, similar to Isan Adil, one of those bowlers that can use their wrists and just push the ball across the left-handed batter. But David White will be a whole different challenge because this is a man that you talk about hitting sixes, especially in the power play, and making use of this hard new ball. He's done it better than most. Most sixes in that minor league season. Playing on the West Coast. So right-hand, left-hand combination for Samp. What do you make of that decision to win the toss and bat?
Again, I think it plays into what you're comfortable with doing, and maybe the Samp Army thinks, you know what, let's put a total on the board and put the pressure on them to chase it, have scoreboard pressure come into play. David White, of course, a tremendous batter. Going back to something that you just said, though, about the variable bounce. You see that last delivery from Ali Shafiq, bouncing a little bit extra. Lahir Milanta doing well to ride the bounce and get it down to third, but that's something to watch for as we go through this innings.
This time goes full. No ball signal, though. It was a gem of a delivery.
Turned him inside out with that delivery, but unfortunately for Ali Shafiq, as we see here on the replay, certainly overstepping. Not quite there with his run-up just yet, Ali Shafiq. And I think from our angle here, it looks like he was just over. We're not square, so it's not exactly easy to tell, but just from our view, it looks like umpire Shane Samuels with the correct call there. So the first free hit of the match.
Free hit coming up, and also a rare opportunity for David White to open his account. Look to find the boundary. Down the track. That is gorgeous. Pure power from White. Makes full advantage of that free hit delivery. And Ali Shafiq just getting a bit predictable with his length, paying the price.
Boy, you will have some sixes that are not hit as hard as that 4 was hit. Absolutely bludgeoned through extra cover. The beautiful sound of ball meeting bat. Yes, coming down the track, skipping down a couple steps, and meeting that ball on the rise. Obviously no concern about keeping it down, but it was in the gap in either way, in either case, and racing away for the first boundary of the day.
He packs a punch, David White. If you're new to watching him, want to settle in, especially if he gets going. Another no ball signal, struggling with that front foot. And another thing that could be affecting him is that wind factor. Bowlers running in against the wind at times can be very challenging. Seems like you're almost fighting 2 battles, approaching the crease and running against the wind. So it's clearly struggling. We saw Isan Adil, who was running with the wind, pushing him, change ends and actually be a lot better.
It's interesting. Saw me in the first match, Bhaskar Yadram, having a little bit of trouble with his run-up also. So, yeah, that part of the issue is running into the wind. I think the other part of the issue is that once you make your mark, just take it back. If you realize that you're either overstepping or close to overstepping, take it back 6 inches, take it back a foot even, because it's not necessary to push so close to that front line. You're not gaining much of an advantage by being 4 inches back or forward. So it's going to be important that they keep this exactly in the right areas in terms of where the ball pitches, but even more important that it keeps his front foot behind the line.
Goes straight up. Hasn't timed it well enough. Lahira Malanta, big wicket and a good comeback for Ali Shafiq, but of course it's not. No ball, so free hit delivery. And Ali Shafiq, you'll be very disappointed, much like I am, Brian Walters. Thought that was the first wicket of the innings, but then I remembered free hit. But what he did well there was take pace off. And Malanta just completely deceived him.
Lofted it straight in the air. Obviously no risk in that shot, but certainly a top edge. So maybe a moral victory for Ali Shafiq. Now he needs to focus and bring the consistency of that last delivery to the next 3 balls.
Stayed a bit low. Brian, I think that is probably one of the worst things as a commentator. You think it's going to be a wicket. I've heard the very best. Tony Cozier do it a couple of times as well, so I know I'm a human.
Did I just hear you compare yourself to Tony
definitely
Best,
not, but
Nikhil?
just saying.
Well, there's a few similarities. Okay, you're both from Barbados. Let's start there.
Both from the same cricket club.
The same cricket club?
The
there you go.
Club.
Boom. Okay, instead of Nikhil, I'm going to start calling you Tony. How about that?
No, definitely not. Good comeback in the last couple of deliveries from Ali Shafiq, though, since overstepping. Can he finish the over well? I think the bounce is going to be the biggest thing for batters to contend with. Some deliveries staying a bit low, others getting a bit of extra bounce, especially with the hard new ball.
I'm looking at Ali Shafiq's approach to the crease, and the first several steps are normal length in what you'd expect from a fast bowler approaching the crease. But then he switches to really small steps, which tells me that he hasn't quite measured his run-up just yet. And I'm wondering if that might not be something that he might look at. Maybe thinking a little bit too much about the run-up to the wicket as opposed to the balls that he's delivering.
One thing we've seen, though, from David White, even with that boundary, there's been a tendency to use his feet against the seam and get very close to the pitch of the ball on a surface where you're not so sure about the bounce, showing that there are innovative ways to score runs on surfaces that could be challenging up front.
It's easier to do that, of course, during the power play with mid-on and mid-off inside the circle. Maybe a little bit less risky than later on in the innings with mid-on and mid-off potentially back on the rope. But David White, I think you've already gotten 11 runs from this first over. He's just looking to make sure that he ends this over without having conceded a wicket.
Another swing and a miss, but still a good over for Samp Army. They'll be happy with that. First over after winning the toss, batting first, 11 for none. Interesting team as well selected for the UMMC Knight Riders. No Ali Sheikh in their lineup. It's going to be Rusty Theron. Very experienced. Bowling from this northern end. They do have a lot of experience on this side. You look at Onmuk Chan. He'll have something to say a bit later on with the bat in hand. Jaskar Malhotra, the captain. Angelo Pereira, former Sri Lankan international. Rusty Theron himself, still playing international cricket.
Rusty Theron, of course, a handful of people who played international cricket for multiple teams. Former South African international, has played a handful of matches for the US. He'll be bowling now to Lahiri Milanta.
Starts very full, which is a risk because you look at the offside, all fielders up in the circle. So I think Rusty Theron is going to have to decipher the length he wants to bowl very early. It was a fluent drive, but well fielded in the end.
Certainly well fielded. Had that gotten through the covers, easily going to be 4. Rusty Theron bowling with the wind at his back.
Just feel Milanta would have thought he missed out on that, Brian. It's not going to be easy for UMMC though, because both these heavy run scorers, these two in the middle, in that minor league season, Milanta 500 plus runs, White 600 plus. And that is what we're talking about. Goes all the way for 6 as well, using the small dimensions of the field. That's Lahiri Milanta at his best.
Gave him the width, short and outside off stump, probably on the 6th or 7th stump line. So no threat whatsoever in that delivery. And again, from over the wicket, from that angle, it is so wide, just easily put away. Usually expect that ball to go for 4, but Lahiri Milanta with that timing and power, elevating it into the air and going all the way for 6. First 6 of the match. Rusty Theron is going to need to get a little bit straighter.
So 2 deliveries he's missed his line and length, really. Has he got a tickle on it? May have just brushed the pad on the way through. No wide signaled. And something you struggle with bowling from that northern end. You almost see him chipping as he gets to the crease, Brian. It seems like he's having to adjust for the wind. Because the wind is pushing him, he sort of has to recalibrate before he delivers that ball, which can be a challenge in itself. Then to deliver. Just watch him at the last second right before he delivers.
You emphasize the point that the wind blowing, whether you're running into the wind or having it push you, it's going to be difficult. And that's one of the elements that you have to consider and sort of accommodate for as a bowler.
Again, with wide outside that off stump area. Does have a deep third for protection, but you have to be very full, because if he gets it wrong and goes too short, Milanta is such a strong player on the offside, very square as well.
It's a bit of a ragged start by both these opening bowlers.
Much better from Rusty Theron. If you can close out the over well, 7 runs from it, or 8 even, you take that. So what's clearly shown that this could be a high-scoring venue.
We emphasized the point in the first match that there is very little margin for error when you're playing or you bowling against players of this caliber. And so if you get it exactly right, then you can keep them quiet. But if you err in either line or length or both, then you can certainly go for runs. And either of these two batters, Lahir Milanta and David White, more than capable of being able to score heavily. David White only scoring shot so far was that 4 off the free hit earlier. Lahir Milanta 9 from 7 with a 6.
"37 sixes for David White in that minor league season. In just 14 innings, he really destroyed it just a couple of months ago. End of 2 overs. I think Rusty Thorne will be happy with that after conceding the maximum. Just 7 runs from the over, 18 for none. Well, if you're now joining us, match number 2 of the MLC Champions Open. A very important 4 days of cricket. Of course, leading into the Major League Cricket draft. The Major League coming around in July of this year. Brian, you must be very excited. You've been in America for such a long time. Now to see a premier franchise tournament come to this country. What do you think it means to not only you, but cricket fans across the different states? Bat on it. An immediate impact for Calvin Savage. Using that height and getting the outside edge. Milanta was given a life when he was dismissed off a free hit. This time, though, has to depart.
Wow. Good delivery by Calvin Savage right in the channel. Just inducing the forward prod. Bowling right arm around the wicket, slanting it into Milanta. And he advanced down the track. And just sort of feeling for that one, and the ball carrying through at an easy height to wicketkeeper Jaskaran Malhotra. First wicket goes down. Calvin Savage strikes immediately upon impact. Scores 18 for 1. So you asked the question as to whether or not, or what was my impression about cricket in America and experiencing a major tournament such as this. It is exciting in a number of different ways, not the least of which is the fact that our cricket has developed to the point where we can host a tournament of this magnitude. But even more than that, you know, just people from, let's say, Canada or somewhere within, let's say, a couple thousand miles of here, if they wanted to watch a match, usually they'd have to travel all the way to the Caribbean or maybe even further away to watch an international level type match. Being able to bring this tournament right here to Dallas, Texas, or in the Dallas area, Flower Mound, is a tremendous boost and something that I think will energize cricket long-term in this country. Immediately, we're looking to make sure that everybody in this country who knows cricket is going to be able to come and watch. But longer term, let's say in the medium and long term, we're hoping to attract fans from outside of the traditional cricketing communities to be able to understand the sport and appreciate it and be participative in it.
Just misses his run up there, but Calvin Savage, known for being a match winner in terms of both with bat and ball. Did it for the Chicago franchise in the minor league, showing that he can do it here again. Another one of those very tall seamers that we have in this MLC Champions Open. Again, seems like it's just skidding on from that high release point. Always an additional challenge, really, when you have a bowler releasing from so high.
Sujith Gowda is the new batter, plays in the minor league system for the Dallas Mustangs. Tremendous batter. Sujith Gowda tends to maybe take a couple of steps to get started, but after he gets going, he can score as heavily as the rest of them. In the minor league season this last year, 533 runs, 36s and 450s. So tremendous batter when he gets it right. So far struggling to get the ball off the square. Calvin Savage, of course, a really good bowler.
So excited at the prospect of these players just putting themselves out there. I mean, you'll hear about the popular ones like a Corey Anderson, like a Liam Plunkett who have played in national cricket, but it's the Calvin Savages and the Sujit Gowdas who have done well domestically in their countries, Gowda in India and Calvin Savage in South Africa, but have the opportunity now to take their career to another level by competing in this competition and potentially going very high in next week's Sunday's Major League Draft. This has been a superb start. 4 deliveries, yet to concede a run, and he's picked up a wicket. I think it's been all about that length. He's been very full, asking the right questions.
And you emphasized it also. With his height, he's probably not quite as tall as Corny Dry, but not too far from that. Probably about 6'3" or 6'4". And he's able to get a decent amount of bounce even from a ball that's relatively full. So even though that last delivery was pitching maybe 3 yards away, still not able to drive it.
And when he does go full and aims for those Yorkers, deadly because of that high release point, just seems like the trajectory of which is being released comes from so much higher, adds so much difficulty to deliveries like that. First runs conceded by Savage, and so far that run rate just a touch above 6.5. He's bringing up the deep third fielder and he's sending back long on. I think because what we've seen from David White is he wants to come down the track, wants to hit in that V very straight. So seems like he's trying to take that away from him. And exactly that, it goes to long on for just one. Excellent over from Calvin Savage for his first. Just 2 runs conceded and a wicket, 20-1. For 1 after 3. No Andreas Gauss, who's been a big part of this Samp Army franchise. He's out due to injury, so that'll be a big loss for them. But still, a lot of battling to come. Jacobus Pinar, Shadi van Schalkwyk, the all-rounder.
Dane Peets, who's obviously a former South African international, can also wield the bat, primarily a spinner, but can't help himself with the bat. This is Rusty Turan back into the attack for his second over. Starts with a good delivery, not offering any room to David White, who's now being kept quiet. 5 is his score. He's faced 9 deliveries, and he does come with the reputation of being a big hitter. So the question is, at what point does he feel the need to start to force the issue? And certainly the advantage being wrested away from the Samp Army by the UMMC Knight Riders so far.
Again, seeming to just skid on, and the ball tends to do that. When it hits those pieces of live grass on the surface, it can really just skid on to the batter. It doesn't give you much time.
Boy, very much a ball going down the leg side. But it will be concerning to David White that he was beaten with the pace, and I think you're exactly right. It skids on, hitting that patch of live grass, and David White playing across the line, not able to get bats on it.
Again, missing his run-up. And I think that delivery there that we saw, the previous delivery, which really skid on, it tells you that even though we had a 180-plus score in the first innings, it's not an easy surface to bat on by any means. Still slightly overcast conditions. A strong breeze blowing across the ground. Just tells you the quality of the batters, that they're still able to find a way. David White, though, needs to find that way quickly. Shorthand jab. Thank you very much, he says. And finally gets one off the middle of the bat. That will help his confidence.
Well, it took a while, but he finally got a ball that he could hit. That was on the pads in the slot, really, from over the wicket, that angle taking it into the pads of David White, and he helps it easily over mid-wicket, landing one bounce and then going over the ropes for his second four. The first four, of course, did not have any risk behind it because it was off a free hit, but this one he plays an elegant flick over the leg side for four.
They just checked his shot. David White ensuring he gets it over that infield. You can see he's not too caught up by the situation. Happy to get himself in and knowing that he has the ability to hit sixes and sort of catch up if he does have a slow start. You would have seen that first game and seen how much the Atlanta Fire batters struggled when they continuously lost wickets. They can just get a bit of momentum with one partnership. All of a sudden, the innings looks a lot different.
You're exactly right. And further emphasizing the point, when you are Rusty Theron and you get that ball in the right areas, you're able to keep David White quiet. But once you stray onto the pads or stray in terms of your length, that's when you can go for runs. So David White, more than capable of putting aside and putting in the memory banks anything that's happened that's not what he expected, and capitalize on the balls he can score off of.
Trying to get it over that mid-off fielder, but unable to execute. Surprised you haven't seen Justin Dillon to the attackers yet. Another person that is able to bowl that new ball, get it to seam because of the strong wrist behind the ball. And we saw how well Isan Adil did that in match number 1.
Justin Dill and Calvin Savage, for me, very similar bowlers. Both are able to hit the deck hard and bowl that hard length, and both of similar pace.
Again, very good over from Rusty Theron, just 4 runs from it. He'd be very happy with that start. End of 4 overs. Keeping things under control here at UMMC, 24 for 1. So just 6 runs conceded from the last 2 overs. And Samp Army need to get a move on. Savage. Leading edge, but no slip in place. And it goes into the boundary. Quick outfield. So first real runs off the bat for Sujit Gowda.
Well, angled into him from over the wicket, but this time the line was exactly where you needed to be on off stump. Sujit Gowda, sort of a tentative poke forward. Thick outside edge would have carried to second, slip at chest height, but no one there, and third man was entirely too square to be able to get to that. So a welcome boundary for the Samp Army.
Strays down the leg side this time, but it just seems like when he gets the ball very full, he's not giving the batters in a lot of time to react. So seeing both Milanta and now Sujit Gowda sort of struggling against Calvin Savage. Again, full and fast. This time the line was good on the legs and just a single. You look at this UMMC side, a wide array of fast bowling. We've seen 4 options already. Still Justin Dill to come. Then they've got the leg spin of Mohamed Mohsin and Sarbajit Ladder, so they could be a bowling attack to be reckoned with in this competition.
Boy, for me, of those names that you just called, one of the most intriguing ones is Mohamed Mohsin.
May have just been sliding on the leg side. Calvin Savage was very confident that he had his man. Again, though, a slow start for David White.
Umpire Shane Samuels having a good look and then eventually deciding in the negative. Okay, so it looks like seam movement right at the very end. So that ball danced off of the seam, and that movement would have taken it down the leg side. So again, a good decision by umpire Shane Samuels, being made to make several decisions early in this match.
Have a green surface, tend to expect that. A lot of balls hitting the pad, tapped at the body of the batters. Again, Gowda. Just a tentative push, but he's timed it well. Should get an easy 2 runs. After losing the toss, this has been an excellent start by the UMMC Knight Riders. They've only taken the 1 wicket, but they've kept the run rate in arguably the most important period of the game, the first 6 overs, the power play, to just 7 and over. Something that Jaskar Malhotra will be very happy about. Still has Justin Dill and his spinners up his sleeve.
It's always a bonus when you can get through most of the power play. We're into the 5th, 2 balls remaining in the 5th, so just another 8 delivers in the power play. Great start so far by UMMC.
Came down the track. It's very high and handsome. And Sujat Gowda using his feet really well. It was only a matter of time before they would go after 1. And they advanced down the track just to get as close as possible and completely deposited it over the boundary for 6.
Wow. Advancing down, but more to the point, staying leg side. So the ability to stay leg side of that ball means that you have the leverage to free your arms. Sujat Gowda going right through with the shot. Ball carrying on to the bat very nicely and put away for the first 6 for him.
I think he's got him. Excellent effort, and he has. What a comeback from Calvin Savage. Went for a maximum, then making a significant effort to take that return catch.
Wow, what a stupendous catch by Calvin Savage. To me, that looked like bat onto pad, and then that ball looped up in the air, and it stayed in the air long enough for Calvin Savage on his follow-through to come down the wicket and dive forward and take that one just a couple of inches off the ground. Looking here at the replay. Slanting in, yep, inside edge onto that front pad, and then he comes forward and leans in. What a tremendous catch. Holding that ball up, and umpire Shane Samuels agreeing that that was an inside edge. So the first wicket, make that the second wicket, goes down. That is the end of 5. Score is 39 for 2.
Well, that wicket of Sujat Gowda will bring out Obis Pinar into the middle. And Amon Patel replacing Nikhil Uttamachandi, joining Brian Walters here in the box. And a great start for the UMMC Knight Riders, as they're seeing wickets falling, runs not coming. And again, oftentimes we say in T20 cricket, the team that wins the power play is the team that's going to win the match, Brian.
Well, if you were going to ask who is winning this power play, you can make a strong case right now for the Knight Riders being who wins the power play. 39 runs conceded, so you're holding the opposition within 7.8 runs and over in the first 6, or make that the first 5. But those 2 wickets that have fallen, those are 2 big wickets back in the hutch. And this is, Ali Shafiq switching around and now bowling from the forest end.
And create a little inside edge. I think they've made that switch because they've seen kind of the wind affecting Ali with the run-up, maybe just something about this end. We saw a couple of people struggle with the no balls from this end as well, so he's changed the ends up. Liam Plunkett did the same thing. He bowled from this from the original end. Ali Shafiq was bowling the south end, didn't like it, so came back from the northern end. I think that's probably the tactic that Jaskar Malhotra, who has the gloves on, first time maybe some time he's got the gloves on. He was a keeper, and then through minor league hasn't kept, really been more of a bowling option. He's got the gloves and pad on to show these scouts, hey, I can be behind the wickets as well. And Obis will get off the mark straight away. Obis Pinar has the fastest 100 in the history of minor league cricket. Did it down in Florida and just raced away. So we know he's got big power, and again, the captain of the side today.
You mentioned Jaskaran Malhotra with the gloves on. Jaskaran in the Houston Premier League, which is one of the premier leagues played in this country, was captain and keeper for that tournament, and they won that tournament. So these, essentially, this MLC Champions Open, each name of the team that is playing is a team that has won a major tournament, a major Premier League tournament here in the U.S. in the recent past.
David White looking for a big one. A little bit of an appeal. UMCC is sold on it. David White smiling, saying there's no way. And the umpire agrees with David White there, and stunned silence out there in the outfield.
Umpire Owen Brown really sure at this time, looking at the replay, can't really pick much up. If there were an edge, it would have been a very fine edge. And Owen Brown is one of the best umpires that you'll find anywhere, so I don't think he's going to be intimidated into giving a decision that he doesn't believe in. So a little bit of excitement, but at the end of it, it's just another dot ball.
And dot ball is great here in the power play. David White, after getting off to a blistering start, is kind of quiet down. 10 off 17 now. And again, just another dot ball, and Shafiq has really found a liking to this side, the northern side, and you can see running in with a lot more confidence, and the ball's resonating off the wicket as well.
I'll tell you, I mentioned how important the Houston Premier League is. There's a certain owner for the Dallas Mustangs who's texting me saying that the DPL is better. I don't know, Lavkesh, that I would agree with you, but I don't have the energy to argue with you today. So let's just say that you win this one.
Sometimes that's what you got to do. And like you mentioned, all these teams here have won a recent tournament. Samp Army, the Unity Cup earlier, as this one was just helped through the leg side in a misfield. Really should have been saved. Should have been maybe one at max. It ends up being 4 runs, and Peter De La Pena with a big baseball throw back into the fielder. But 4 runs for David White and a much-needed boundary here for Samp Army.
They definitely needed that boundary. That's Sarbjeet Lada going down to his left. He's a right-hander, so that would have been to his weak side, but you'd have to think that he would have backed himself to have taken or to have stopped that ball. So 3 additional runs conceded where it did not need to be. And you'll take those bonus runs if you are David White.
Umpire just having a look at the ball. Hands it back to Ali Shafiq. And again, this is going to be a big partnership for Samp Army. Have some bats left, but you would figure these are the 2 that they would really be relying on. David White at least won the openers, and Obis Pinar, the captain for today's match. As this one nips away from David White as well, off the wicket, and Jaskaran Malhotra excited behind the stump, so why wouldn't he be? 6 overs gone, 45 for the loss of 2. We're going to see a change in the bowling here. It's going to be Justin Dill into the attack. And again, one of just the many options that Captain Malhotra has in his wheelhouse. Again, we've already seen Calvin Savage really start things off strong alongside Rusty Theran. He's gotten 2 overs as well from Ali Shafiq, and now he's going to start off Justin Dill, part of the St. Louis American side. And before that, the New Jersey Stallions was a big part of their ascension to finals weekend in 2021.
I was saying earlier, Justin Dill and Calvin Savage are similar types of bowlers, both relatively tall, both hit the deck hard. They bowl that hard length. You won't necessarily get a lot of bouncers, a lot of genuinely short balls, but they bowl that length that is just short of a good driving length, and as they say, they bowl a very heavy ball, difficult to get away. So he generally bowls well during the power play. So even outside of the power play, you expect that he'll be that much more difficult to score off of.
This one pulled away just for 1 there as the field spreads out for Justin Dill. bowling at the culmination of the power play, and a packed leg side field with a deep backward square, deep mid wicket, and a long on, as well as a long off and a cover. And again, you can see that hard length, that similar Corey Anderson type length that we saw earlier today being employed by Justin Dill.
Completely. So I expect that that's his stock ball. Maybe if he makes any changes, it will be off of that stock ball. And really a very good bowler and very difficult to score off of generally.
This one straight up into the air, but it's going to beat everyone inside the infield. And it's going to be a boundary, a much needed boundary for Samp Army. It's going to be 4 runs there for David White.
Beat him for pace. So let's call it a moral victory for Justin Dill. Genuine top edge, flying over the top of that fielder inside the circle at fine leg. But looking at the replay, slanting up at that angle into his body, and that top edge carrying the ball over the top of that fielder, short fine leg. So you welcome those boundaries. That brings up the 50, by the way, for the Samp Army.
This one on the body and just clipped away for 1. Again, Justin Dill, he's going to be on that length, and so if you are Samp Army, you got to decide. And you know, we've seen David White be more than willing to come down the track and take him on that way. Obis Pinar, maybe he's going to sit back with a little bit taller of an individual. Could use that to his advantage as well.
Boy, Justin Dill, I said earlier, he's not quite as quick as a corny drive, but he's quick enough that if you go advancing down the wicket, that's generally a good way to eat a cricket ball.
And just worked off of his pads for 1. Justin Dill, he's picked up 33 wickets over 2 seasons in minor league cricket, and again was one of the spearheads in 2021 for the New Jersey Stallions team that got to the championship game and fell short to the Silicon Valley Strikers. And another one of these hot commodities you'd have to expect to go pretty early in the draft. That culminates after 4 of these match days. Comes down the track, does David White, as we mentioned earlier, and will just pick up 1 down the ground.
Well, you ask for it. When you come down the track, you're looking to change the equation. You're looking to get the bowler to do something different. So the question to be asked is that little shimmy down the track enough to get Justin Dill off of his line and length? I don't think so, but it's just something to pay attention to. Obviously, it's a different batter on strike now with that single having been taken. But let's see whether or not Justin Dill keeps that same line and length.
And again, does keep that same line and length, back of a length, and I think he's seen too much success to fault away from it. That'll end it for the 7th over, 53 for the loss of 2. And the new man coming into the middle with the ball in hand is going to be Sarbjit Ladda. Going to get some spin early on here is Jaskaran Malhotra and just try to change things up. They've seen Samp Army has 7 overs of pace. And now in the middle overs with the protection out there. Going to try his hand with the spinner and see if he can slow down David White, who we've already seen is very willing to come down the track and attack the Pacers. Will he do the same to the spinners as he takes an off-stump guard? So he's already telling you he's looking to clear things over the leg side.
Sarbjit Ladda playing for the DC Hawks in the minor leagues. This last season, 27 wickets, conceded 319 runs. So you expect for a leg spinner to go for runs, but you also expect him to take wickets. Starts out well here.
Good length there early on from Ladda, and Ladda's taken a lot of wickets for the DC Hawks, 56 wickets across 30 innings, and a strike rate of 12, so every 2 overs he's at least taking a wicket. And Jessica Malhotra, you've seen a lot of Ladda, both playing for the DC Hawks in minor league cricket. The sweep shot out there, and there's the wicket straight away. You can see David White just trying to play the sweep shot. The fielder was there, and the cries for catch it. And the easiest of catches at fine leg.
Oh my goodness. If you're David White, you have to feel mortified. You could have hit that ball within 2 yards either side of that fielder, and you have 4 runs to your name, at least 4 additional runs to your name. But he picked out that fielder short fine leg, hit it relatively well. Didn't blast it, but hit it relatively well. But it carries straight to that fielder at knee height. All he had to do was just bend down and take it. A pretty simple catch in the end. And that is 3 wickets down now for the Samp Army. Remember, they chose to bat first. And David White, caught by Angelo Pereira, ends his day with the bat with 20 from 25 with 4 fours. Samp Army is 53 for 3.
And again, Angelo Pereira was never going to drop that one. You could see David White, he was just trying to place it around the corner. Maybe he just didn't know that Angelo Pereira was there. Maybe he never caught sight of him. But regardless, it'll bring out Shadley Van Skalkovic into the middle. And one of the reigning champions of minor league cricket as a part of the Seattle Thunderbolts bowled that final over that sealed the deal.
Oh. He held his nerve in a way that is hard to describe. With all the pressure of the finals of the minor league championship on the line, and he bowled the over. He's probably bowled better overs in his life, but in this country and in this tournament, that is the biggest over that he's bowled, I think. Tremendous all-rounder, though. He's being asked to do it with the bat this time.
And that one just hanging a touch low, maybe skidding on to Shadley as well. And again, slip in play, and it's for that just ability to move it across and use the googly from Ludda. We've seen it in minor league time and time again. And again, you just don't know how many more wickets you can lose before that 10th over if you're Samp Army, especially if you want to build that platform to tee off from.
Shadley Van Skalkovic, as I mentioned, a really good all-rounder. One of the best in the league, obviously. Left-handed batter. Tends to start a little slow but can accelerate towards the end. So if you're going to have him bat for a long time, he is the type of batter who you would think can push the ball around, pick up a single or two, and then he, as a left-hander, will be very important against not only Lada, but the other leg spinner, Mohamed Mohsen. So let's call it the battle within the war. Those are 2 things to look for. How Van Skalkovic does against Lada and how he does against Mohsen.
And that one, a little extra bounce that time. You can see Jessica Moza taking that near the helmet. And again, also very animated behind the stumps. But you brought up a good point with Mohamed Mohsen. Does Justin like to bring him on in the next over? Does he go Justin Dill? Does he just go for the kill with Mohsen, saying, oh, we have 2 guys who are relatively new. We just try out our hand with the spinners. Is that the way to take another wicket? As Shadley would go push it down the ground for 1.
So Van Skalkovic getting off the mark. What an absolutely brilliant over. Just 1 run coming from it, that last ball that you just saw, that single, and taking the big wicket of David White. So after 8, score is 54 for 3.
And it looks like Malhotra is going to continue with the formula and go with Justin Dill. Nothing wrong in continuing with Justin, who just went for 8 runs in his first over. And he looked good as well, just the 1 boundary, and going to continue to see if he elects to use that hard length. And now for Obis, Pinar, and Shadley Van Skalkovic, it feels almost as if they're just trying to survive to that 15 over mark and then let the guys behind them, the Dame Peach, the Civic-Umar, the Voporapus, let those guys tee off towards the end.
So 54 for 3. You're still scoring at the rate of 6.75. That rate projects to a score of 135. I think they'll want much more than that. I'll say more about that shortly.
This one cut away, fielder giving chase, and he's not going to get there. Giving a little bit of width there off that length, and we've seen anytime width is given from back of a length, the ball just kind of sits up and is asked to be hit, and this time Van Skalkovic, he obliges.
That is a good-looking shot by Van Skalkovic. Ball again, short and outside off stump. Gave him just that extra bit of room needed cut away in the deep, and Rusty Theron not able to get around to be able to cut that one off. I started saying at the rate of, well, right now that rate is up to 7 after that shot. That rate gets them to 142. Another wide ball outside off that no contact is made. But at that same rate, they get to 142. A rate of 8 gets them to 153. A rate of 10 gets them to 176. That might be overstating the potential score, but I think they'll be looking to go somewhere around the rate of 8, 8.5 and over the rest of the way.
If you hold on to wickets, we've always seen the last 5 can always just turn up for you at the end, but you'd have to imagine you're going to look at a score from 150 to 160 at minimum based off what we saw in that first match in both innings. This one's left alone, and not going to see many well lefts, you have to imagine, in the 9th over and beyond now.
And Skulkvik, I think, wanting to see umpire Shane Samuels raising those arms, but in looking at it, it appeared to just have been just inside the line, at least from where we can see from our vantage point.
And again, left alone there, and interesting decision. This time did raise the hands, some style points maybe for the lead, but not going to help the run total.
No, it's not. So 2 balls remaining here in the 9th. Justin Dill operating exactly the same way that you would think that he would be. 1.4 overs, none for 12 so far.
And this is a staple of Justin Dill's game. He's always looking to change the angle, try something different. And as soon as he gets you thinking you know what's coming, he's seen 2 leaves from Van Skalkvik. He says, let me change it up, change the angle, and come back towards stumps. And I think, again, just to throw him for a loop. Keep the batter thinking, keep him guessing, and just don't let him get into a rhythm.
It's not going to be as easy a leave this time from around the wicket, that ball with that angle coming into Shadil Van Skalkvik.
This time takes a skip down the wicket and just pushes it to the offside for 1. Out there's Unmuk Chand, who we'll get to see with the bat later today. And again, one of the premier bats in minor league cricket. Should be good to see. And we'll have 1 delivery for Obis Pinar to face. And hasn't seen a lot of deliveries. Didn't see a single delivery in the Ludda over. And this is his first delivery here in this over. So it's almost 2 overs before he's seen 1.
You mentioned the fastest century in the history of minor league cricket. 3 from 4 so far, though.
Again, just ticks it into the leg side. Going to be 1, and he'll hold on to strike for the 10th over. At the end of 9, that's 60 for the loss of 3.
By the way, that was an all South African affair. 2 batters at the crease. The delivery by Justin Dill and fielded by Rusty Theron.
So there you go.
Nothing but South Africans sort of taking place on that last delivery. So 1 over to go before we're halfway through the innings. 60 for 3 feels to me, Aman, like an undercooked total so far. After choosing to bat, you think that emotes a certain amount of confidence, and I think they'd be looking for more than 60 runs and fewer than 3 wickets at this stage of the innings.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine they were looking at, closer to 80, maybe 90 runs at this stage of the game and get to 10 overs with 8 wickets left and be able to tee off from there. And they just haven't executed that, but you still have great experience in the middle with Obis, with Shadley, and again, this is the matchup. Not going to be Ludda, it's going to be Mohammed Mohsin, and we've seen him bowl. He's very interesting up there in Chicago. Starts quick and near the wide line and not going to be given. Obis is begging for it. He can't believe it. And you can still see him asking for it. And again, usually a calm, collected dude.
Yes.
But you can see that one. He just couldn't believe it. Shadley Van Skalkvik couldn't believe it. But Mohsin gets off with the dot ball. This time just cuts it to cover out in the deep for 1. And again, here's the angle of Mohsin coming back into the left-hander. We'll see if Shadley tries to play one of these bigger shots into the leg side. Mohsin is quick through the air, so he's not going to let you get on one knee and wait for it. You're going to have to make a decision very quickly. Goes onto that Yorker lane. Quick single attempt. A chance of a run out. And the umpire's unmoved. Says Obis Pinar got back in time, much to the dismay of Captain Jaskar Malhotra behind the stumps.
Boy, I tell you, Mohammed Mohsen is a very difficult bowler to attack, even in theory, and that one is much more tossed up than ordinarily you'd see from him. But he generally pushes it through much more quickly. And interestingly, he's able to move the ball both directions. So he has a really well-disguised googly. So just because he's bowling to a left-hander doesn't necessarily mean that it will be an easy scoring opportunity for Shadley Van Skalkvik.
And Obis is home. You can see it in that replay. Bat was down, and good call from the umpire. Jaskar Malhotra will believe that he took off the bails beforehand. And this one just pushed into the offside, and no run. And again, the pressure from the UMMC Knight Riders has been spectacular. Hasn't had that big over that Samp Army's been able to relieve any of this pressure. Just been consistently up front. But there's a full toss. Commentator's curse, Brian. You might be rubbing off on me. That one's the biggest of the lot. And Obis Pinar says thank you very much, and he'll take a welcome 6.
Wow, that is a pressure release. Full toss. You don't expect to see Mohammed Mohsen bowl in a full toss. It's generally bang on target, but that is full and going, drifting down the leg side. So meat and drinks for any batter worth his salt. And Obis Pinar, one of the best, just easily putting that away over mid-wicket for his first 6.
And after a ball that he felt went wide to start it off, I think he's going to say, well, here we go. This is my little revenge. This is karma working back for me. And again, for Mohammed Mohsen, he's been tight. You know he's going to be quick through the air and just try to be on stumps. That time just missing the length. And I think it's an interesting decision from Jaskar Malhotra to go away from Ludda. Maybe we'll see him later, as this one is cut through cover. It's going to at least be 1. They could think of 2, and they'll just settle for 1. So it will be Obis Pinar as we come out of the 10th over. And seems like there might be one more delivery, or that is going to be the over. 10 overs gone. 69 for loss of 3.
Halfway stage in this innings. And the UMMC Knight Riders have done extremely well to keep the pressure on. Have to close out the innings well, though, and as we saw in that last over, Jacobus Pinar is a dangerous threat if he can get going. First 3 wickets have gone down. Relatively inexpensive. So rebuilding time for Van Skalvik and Pinar, but they still need to score. As Peter Delapena joins me. What have you made of the first 10 overs, Peter?
Well, I know that Obis Pinar had his spinach, his Popeye breakfast based on how far that 6 sailed over the boundary.
It's been good from Justin Dill, because usually he bowls a new ball. Now he's come and had to bowl in the middle period, but has done well in terms of controlling the game with his length, especially forcing the batters to hit into that bigger square boundary.
Yeah, everybody who's had a chance to sit and watch has benefited. Does take some time adjusting, even for the guys who've been here before. which most of these guys have. There is an adjustment period to be made.
On the leg side this time, though, has to re-ball it. Justin Dill. How do they get back into this game, Samp Army? What do they need to do to ensure that they can still get to 150 from here?
Well, some more of those full tosses would certainly help. I know that much. I don't know how many more of those you're going to get. But using the pitch like this back of a length, where there's been this variable bounce at times, it's made life difficult for the batters throughout the day. So the experienced bowlers have been drawing on that to make life difficult for the batters. And it's just really a matter of hoping, waiting for a loose delivery if and when it comes, like we saw Obis PNR doing the previous over.
I find it very interesting that Jaskar Malhotra took Sarbajit Ladder out of the attack. Bowled the 8th over, picked up a wicket, the one of David White, and only conceded 5 runs. But for some reason, he's pulled him out and tried to save him for a bit later. Bat on it. The finger goes up. And Shadi Van Scava had been there for a while, not able to get going. And more trouble for Samp Army.
Again, it's that back of the length where we've seen some sideways movement throughout the day. The ball's been seaming and swimming a bit. And then also there's the variable bounce as well. So we take a look at this replay. You can see him rolling his fingers over it. There's a cutter, just that rolling his fingers sideways, taking a little bit of pace off the ball and just trying to dig it into the wicket to get some sideways movement. Have another look at this replay, but just look at his wrist and his fingers. It just comes over the side of the ball. It just comes down the side a little bit, and that just produces that outside movement, that away movement. It just cuts off the wicket, and enough deviation to draw the outside edge.
Well, Dan Pete, who is mainly known for his bowling exploits but can bat, had a 50 in that minor league for his team, the Marsville Raptors. He was captain and took them over the line. Can he be a hero for this Samp Army side? They need him now. Gets off the mark straight away. Got over from Justin Dill. His third over goes for just 5 runs, and he's picked up the wicket. 74 for 4. Well, if you're now joining us, match number 2 of this MLC Champions Open. What a day of cricket it's been. Enterprising action in the middle at the Prairie View Cricket Complex in Houston. We've had 1 game already, which was won by the Kingsmen. Now, Samp Army and UMMC Knight Riders battling. 8 matches split into 4 days. 2 today, 2 tomorrow. Ladder, the leg spinner, back into the attack. For his second over. How much have you seen of Sarbajit Ladder, Peter Della Pena?
Not too much prior to today, but you can see why he's here. An impressive first over and keeping it tight immediately. Coming back into the attack for his second. He's got a good rhythm, too, coming into the crease, batting in the way he does. He's accurate. There's a lot to like about him.
Well, the one thing about him, he's not afraid. He will flight the ball. As a leg spinner, you're always in the game in terms of wickets if you flight the ball. Many times batters go at him, and he's able to get wickets. Second most wickets in the minor league season. 27 wickets for Sarbajit Ladder. Very straight, but there is a fielder there. The key thing, though, is in those 27 wickets, his strike rate was 12. A wicket every 2 overs. And that's what made him such a go-to option for the DC Hawks, and a go-to option here for Jaskar Malhotra because both of them play for the DC Hawks, same franchise in the minor league. Just past extra cover. These singles, though, is not going to help their cause too much. Need to pick things up. Don't have a lot of batting to come either. So it's a real tough balance to find, trying to find the boundary, but trying to minimize risk at the same time. Just trying to get his feel right, Jaskar Malhotra. He's got deep cover. Long off, long on. Then deep mid-wicket, deep backward square. Singles. Don't mind that too much if you are UMMC. What do you think they fancy chasing from this position?
Oh, anything under 150 from this position anyway, I think they'd be more than content with. Talk about the lack of batting for Samp Army.
On the leg side, have to re-ball it. Allows us to talk about Andreas Gauss. How much do you think they're missing him?
Well, it's not just him, the entire bench. They've got a stacked bench. Andreas Gauss, Marty Kane, and Cameron Steele. Cameron Steele has got a lot of experience playing county cricket in England. He's an American citizen born in California, but he's played all around the county circuit over the last couple of years. Those are 3 quality batting options, all on the bench. And again, it just highlights the mindset of having the rotation policy, trying to give everybody a chance to get evaluated in front of the scouts throughout the week. So they've taken this match to rest some of their bigger guns. Probably the biggest of those, Andreas Gauss, as scores 79 for 4 after 12 overs. Yeah, on a different match, if they were playing with a mindset to go all out for victory, you would not expect to see those 3 guys on a bench. And as a result of the fact that they are on the bench today, yeah, their depth isn't quite there in the batting department. So a lot rides on this partnership to keep going.
Well, both Gauss, who I've heard is dealing with a slight injury, so that's why they've rested him, and Obas Pinyar, both played in the T10 for Samp Army. So they've been around this franchise, knows the culture of the franchise, and exactly what is expected. Justin Dill again, who's bowled extremely well from this southern end. And whether it's been on the body or wide, he's forced the batters to hit into that square boundary, and it's why he's only gone for above 6 runs and over. It's been a superb spell of bowling from him in these 18, now 19 deliveries. Misses his run up. Would you have bowled him out? He's bowling his final over of his quarter, Justin Dill. Would you have gone, or would you have saved him maybe one for the back end of the innings?
This is a frequent debate that comes up, whether to stick with the formulaic, predetermined script, or you've got your designated guys who you want to bowl with the new ball and then at the death, or if you've got somebody who's in a good rhythm in a situation where you're on top and you just want to keep pressing that advantage, you bowl out their 4th over a little bit earlier, and that's what they're doing here on this occasion, which I wish more captains would do, to be quite honest. If you've got a guy in a good rhythm, why not keep him going? Kill the game off early. Why wait to the 20th over? You've got an opportunity where you can take wickets well before then.
Nothing for these Samp Army batters to work with. It's been excellent stuff from Justin Dill. We mentioned him earlier during the game. The fact that he had such a strong Houston challenge just a year ago, right here at the Prairie View Cricket Complex on these green surfaces, and he's following it up now. Almost an opportunity for a return catch as well. He's someone that's been around for a long time, Justin Dill. Man from Port Elizabeth in South Africa. Played in that 2014 Under-19 World Cup. So a lot of players who have competed at the Under-19 World Cup playing in this MLC Champions Open. I think Dane Pete has been pretty happy to just rotate the strike. Given the situation, given that you don't have much to come, just allowing Jacobus Pinar to face as many deliveries as possible.
Yeah, from that standpoint, it's all about stretching the innings out, really. Just take it deep. That's the mentality for guys in this situation. Get it to the 15th, 16th over before you really try and launch from there. But on the flip side, this UMMC team, I don't think they're going to mind all that much, to be perfectly honest. If Samp Army's only looking to take singles, they'll be perfectly content with that in the field, so it's not going to harm them one bit.
Wind really picking up here at the Prairie View Cricket Complex, as it does at times, as a different challenge for the cricketers playing. Just kept a bit low, and because we're seeing, you look at this innings so far from Samp Army and just how difficult it's been for batters, no one really to get away. It tells you how impressive that 50 earlier today from Tejinder Singh was. End of the 13th over, 84 for 4. Tejinder Singh playing for the Kingsmen side, 53 from 31, and really looked like he was batting on a completely different surface. So that's one to keep your eye on as we continue in this MLC Champions Open. Pretty much set the tone and allowed them to get to that 180. We're helped by Shubham Ranjana, who got 30 from 17 deliveries. But it shows you it is a challenging surface. Ladder will continue. The leg spinner. Bowling his third over. He's bowled 12 deliveries, Sarbjeet Ladder, and 7 of them have been dot balls. So he's clearly found something in terms of that length where he can pitch the ball and get a few to grip in the surface. A couple deliveries have gone past the outside edge. Again, very full. If you've ever watched Sarbjeet Ladder before, you'll know that that's his blueprint.
Curiously, he's bowling with the wind at his back. We talked to Dane Pete last year about this at Minor Cricket Finals weekend. Spinners typically like to bowl into the wind so they can get more revs on the ball. He's actually bowling with the wind at his back, so the wind is really pushing the ball quicker to the batter and not giving him an opportunity to get as many revs on the ball, but that's made this all the more impressive. He's bowled with great control here. Through the wind at an end where you wouldn't necessarily expect a spin bowler to be succeeding the way that he has so far.
Wickets, and if you know Sarbjeet Ladder, you know he's always in the wickets. Second on the day. This man has caused some problems for teams in the last 12 months. That's a big wicket to get of Jacobus Pena as well. Never really got going. 18 from 19 and more trouble for Samp Army.
And again, that ball just dips very sharply. Because the wind is gusting like that, if he gets some overspin on it, which is what he's got here, it just all of a sudden it dips very, very quickly, and the length isn't quite what you expect it to be. Just throws the timing off, and Obis PNR chops on. So bottom edge, just again, that length is so difficult to judge when the ball just drops quicker than you think it is with these windy conditions. And Sarvjit Lada's got 2 wickets to his name.
Real spot of bother now, Samp Army. Still 6 overs remain after this, so there's a lot of deliveries to make use of, but they're already 5 wickets, lost half their side. And pretty much most of their out-and-out batters. So it's now for the all-rounders as Shivakumar Duvarapu comes to the middle. These two know each other well. Both play for the same franchise, Dane Pete and Duvarapu, in the minor league. So we'll have that understanding, but we'll need runs quickly. At this rate, they only get to 128, which I don't think is enough, given the stature of that UMMC batting lineup. Can they get a big finish going into the last 5 overs? They need a partnership. Leading edge was almost another one for Sarvjit Lada.
The way he's bowling, you almost wonder, why not have a goalie in there? Get a second catching fielder. As it is, that slip is awfully wide, incredibly wide for a spin bowler. You don't really see a slip fielder typically fielding that wide. Very unique field setting here, but again, it's impacted in part by the windy conditions here.
Very full Yorker length. And if you know Indian conditions, you know that leg spin is not an easy art to master. It tells you that Sarvjit Lada, the fact that he was able to make strides as a wrist spinner in India before coming to the United States, has to be of some quality. He's bowled 3 overs, 2 wickets for just 7 runs, 85 for 5. So Justin Dill completing his 4 overs, 1 for 24, bowling from this southern end. It's going to be replaced by another seamer, Calvin Savage, who bowled ever so well to pick up 2 wickets in his first 2. Down the leg side, another appeal. No interest though. I think it may have probably brushed the shirt or the body of the way through of Dane Pete.
It's not just his bowling that was impressive, it was the fielding too. That catch that he took off his own bowling. And the evidence of that arm that's taped up, you got a carpet burn, skidding across the pitch, diving forward in his follow through to take a return catch earlier. That's why his right arm is taped up now.
When we see the replays of Calvin Savage, you look at his wrists. Very strong wrists, almost pulling down the ball. It allows the ball, especially when it hits those greener areas on this surface, to skid through, like it did on that previous delivery, sort of at the body of Dane Pete. And then he's got the height and some pace to add to it. So he's a real handful for batters, and I think one that the scouts here at this MLC Champions Open will keep their eye on, because we haven't seen it with the bat as yet, but if you watch him in the minor league season, he's destructive with the bat in hand. Run out chance. If he hits, he was gone. Duvarapu would have been short of his ground, but in the end survives. Daskar Malhotra has led this UMMC Knight Riders team to a few wins. They won the Houston Open in 2022. They won the local competition here in Houston just a month ago, the Houston Premier League. And now he's got some added reinforcements to join this UMMC side. Again, just 2 runs conceded from the first 4 deliveries. Again, added bounce, but doesn't carry to Rusty Theron. Dane Pete was just struggling to get to the other end. But he gets there in the end. Just 8 from 12. It's really been a disappointing showing from Samp Army, but you have to give credit to UMMC and their bowlers especially. The seamers made excellent use of that new ball. Gorgeous drive, but straight to the field. Unmuk Chan does well. Excellent over from Calvin Savage. He's been brilliant on display today at the Prairie View Cricket Complex. Just 4 runs from his over. 5 remain, 89 for 5.
Welcome you to the last 5 overs of this second match of the MLC Champions Open. In this first inning, Samp Army, they've not gotten off to the start they're looking for, and they're going to need a fiery close. 89 runs on the board as Sarbjit Ladda comes back into the attack after a 1-run over that led to the wicket of Obis Pinar. Aman Patel joining Peter De La Pena in the box. Peter, from this position, if you're Samp Army, what score are you looking at?
Well, from here, you'd take 130. I said 150 before, and that was well before this go slow continued.
This one cut off the back foot, just out to cover, so it will be 1. And again, this is what Ladda does really well. He's able to build pressure, not give up any runs, and he understands lengths and just kept things very difficult. But at some point, you feel that Pete and Sivakumar are going to have to tee off, which might play right into the hands. There was the sweep shot, just out into the deep for 1. Sivakumar was thinking about a second, but again, Samp Army seems to be quite okay just taking these ones throughout the entire innings. They consistently were able to get ones away, just the boundaries haven't flowed in the same fashion. And after winning the toss and electing to bat first, I'd have to feel a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, this has not really been a Samp Army performance. It's more like a Samp medium-sized militia. They need the bazookas to come out here. Aman, they're using pea shooters at the moment. They need the heavy artillery.
A little miss there. You can see the little laugh shared by Ladda and Pete. And you mentioned that they need the big guns now to Samp Army. They need them to start firing at all cylinders. And that one not going to fire anywhere. Maybe a little bit of a misfire as Sivakumar looked to play that one and just played it straight back to the ground. And again, this is what Ladda does really well, and I'm sure he's turning some heads here. Of all the scouts in attendance, ready for that draft in just 4 match days. I'll culminate on that Sunday. This one lofted up. Sivakumar comes down the track. Fielders in place. And unable to take it, but will save a boundary, so it will just be 1. Ladda would have loved to have another wicket to his name, but holding the boundary in the end, you can see the applause.
And again, not to beat a dead horse, but this just shows the difficulty fielding in these conditions. That was always going to hang up in the wind. It was never going to carry to the boundary. But the fielder out there just didn't come in quickly enough off the rope. Thought it was going to carry much deeper than it did, but again, the wind was always going to keep that ball well inside the boundary rope. As we see 2 runs cut here behind point by Dane Pete.
And we know Dane Pete has the ability to turn it on, but he's going to have to do it a lot sooner rather than later. 16 overs gone, 94 for a loss of 5.
And that wraps up a quality spell from Sarjeet Lada. 2 for 12 in his 4 overs. Fantastic from the spinner. And he's a big reason why they've really struggled to generate any momentum here in the second half of this innings. And now that he's finished his spell, they might be breathing a little bit more easily. And maybe there was just a case of seeing him off and thinking they're going to take their chances against the medium pacers. But it's easier said than done when you've got Rusty Tehran coming back into the attack now.
And Rusty Tehran, he started off well in his first 2 overs, just giving up 12 runs. And he was able to find a length early. And again, now you have to imagine with the field spread out, you're going to see a lot of variation coming out because you know these two have to start to tee and start to play some big shots. Wouldn't be surprised to see some cutters. Digs it in, and that was full pace on. They're able to sneak away a quick single to get Dane Pete on strike.
Ali Sheikh was the backward point fielder there. He looked like he wanted to unleash one, but he was looking, where's the backup? There's nobody in the ring in front of square on the leg side. So there's a huge gap at mid-wicket, and that's where the backup fielder needed to be, but that help coming off the boundary. Calvin Savage is the deep mid-wicket fielder. He was the one who really needed to come in a bit quicker off the rope to create a backup scenario that never materialized.
This one cut, fielder coming around, and we'll just keep it to 1.
And
As
just
you mentioned, Ali Sheikh, you know, not in the 11 today, so I'm sure he was ready to fire one out, see if he can cause a run out and earn his stripes and turn some heads that way.
yeah, there's so many different ways you can catch somebody's attention here for all the scouts who are here, especially for the USA players. Ali Sheikh, local from Texas, based in Plano in the Dallas Metroplex area. And he's played for USA, made his T20I debut against Ireland back in December 2021. In that famous victory that USA had in Lauderhill. And hasn't played for USA since then, since that tour, but as a result of that, it means he's somebody who probably not a lot of these scouts have gotten a chance to look at. So yeah, even though he's not in the 11 today, he's got a chance to make an impact here, get on the radar.
Siva Kumar just able to chip it to Umukchand, who nearly ran him out. You saw Rusty Tehran move Umuk to that position just before this delivery and nearly resulted in the end of Siva Kumar as they look to take that quick single.
And the angle he had, he only had one stump to aim at. He's throwing from the edge of the 30-yard circle. You can see Siva Kumar gave up. He knew he was toast.
This one on the legs of Dane Pete. He's able to push it through. Fine leg is going to come around alongside deep backward square and just keep it at 1. And again, no boundaries. We haven't had a boundary since the 10th over, Peter. And that was a 6 hit by Obis Pinar on a full toss from Mohammad Mohsen.
It's been as rare as Bigfoot. Are we going to get a sighting sometime in the last 3 overs here, sometime in the last 19 deliveries?
Samp Army would be hoping for one with just 19 deliveries to go. This one just inside edge onto the pads, and it'll just be one to close out the 17th over. Another good over here for the UMMC Knight Riders. It's 99 for loss of 5. And interestingly enough here, Peter, we're going to see spin here in the 18th over in the form of Mohamed Mohsen.
And again, they're going to be hitting into the wind. If they're going to try and take him down the ground straight. The wind's blowing out to the west, and that's where that 6 disappeared by Elvis Pienaar when sailing over the rope at mid-wicket. So square the wicket. If you can go to the leg side square, that's where the wind is going to help you out. But if you try and go straight, it's a lot more difficult.
Tried to go square, but just opened up his stumps. Ball might have stayed a touch low. And Sivakumar Duvarapu looking to play one of those big shots. Instead, he loses his wicket.
Oh, you can see why Mohsen was teasing him with that delivery. That was what he wanted Dane Pete to do. He said, see if you can clear a deep mid-wicket. I dare you to. And from that line on 5th, 6th stump, it just makes it that more challenging. You're hitting against the turn, and you're trying to drag it from well outside off stump to get it over the leg side rope. And so the degree of difficulty is there, and it makes it difficult for Sivakumar to time it well. It drags the bottom edge onto the stump, so it means Kartik Gatapali comes out to the middle. Former USA Under-19 representative. Toured with the Under-19 squad up in Toronto a few years ago. Left arm spinning all-rounder, who's had some pretty good success playing here in Texas. This is where he's based, and where he plays his minor league cricket as well. And he's somebody who's got some Australian ties. He's actually an Australian citizen. He spent most of his youth there before migrating to the U.S. He's somebody I know who wouldn't mind being taken by one of these franchises with the Australian links. We've got the DC franchise with links to New South Wales, and then Cricket Victoria also making a partnership as well. So I'm sure he's extra keen to impress some of the scouts who are here.
And we'll just find cover to start things off. You said had a lot of success in Prairie View, where he plays for the Houston Hurricanes with the ball in hand. Just hasn't really had opportunities with the bat. But he'll be able to get one away here and get Dane Pete back onto strike. Again, it's going to be crucial here for Dane Pete to get going. We saw him back at Church Street Park against the New Jersey Stallions in one of the playoff matches. Catch fire late in an innings and was able to make it competitive at the end. And a match that just seemed lost, and we'll only find one here. But it's not easy when you see the bowling of Mohamed Mohsen and company. UMMC has just been so tight. Come in with a plan and stuck to it, and Samp Army just never been able to force them to move away from it. Short and just pulled away for one by Kartik Gatapali.
And again, that short ball to a left-hander, it's not going to be a delivery that's going to be easy to get to the boundary, because the wind is blowing east to west. So for a left-hander, you're hitting into the wind there. The right-hander, you're hitting with the wind if you're trying to go over mid-wicket. So if you're going to make a mistake in your Mohsen, that's not a bad mistake to make, dropping it short to a left-hander. You don't want to make that same mistake to a right-hander with Pete on strike.
This line much fuller, and it's through the gap in the infield. Interesting angles taken and well placed by Dane Pete. He'll pick up 4 in the first boundary since the 10th over to close out the 18th.
This is a top-class shot. Not just on the length he executed this, but the gap. There's a very, very little margin to pierce that gap between short third man and backward point, and somehow he's able to do so to break that boundary streak, that boundaryless streak.
And 106 runs on the board for Samp Army with 2 overs to go. You can be looking, like you mentioned, 130 is probably the range and probably the area they want to be. And so if you're Dane Pete and to get the bully, that's a couple of boundaries. You'd hope, ideally, out of these 12 balls, you can get 6 boundaries. Get singles and runs off everything else, and I think that's the conversation being had here by Pete and Gattapalli. And Jessica Merlotter with this field alongside Rasi Taran. He's got a deep cover, deep extra cover, a deep cover, a deep backward square leg, and a long off with long on coming inside the circle. Excuse me, flip that field. We have a lefty on strike, so be a cow corner, a deep mid wicket, a long on, and a deep point, suggesting that the ball can be on body line, and then just occasion if he just tries to push one wide, has a little bit of protection there, with also a backward point inside the circle. And does go back of a length and wider, and again had protection for that delivery, but Gattapalli unable to get any bat on it. They're on a very smart bowler, but I'm not sure he's too pleased with that delivery. Again, dot balls are going to hurt you a lot here, Peter, especially with just 11 to go. You're going to need to find runs in any way, shape, or form. Again, yet to get bat on balls. That time, Rasi Taran rolls his fingers over it.
This is why Rusty's been such a good bowler in T20 cricket on the American scene ever since coming over here a few years ago. He's got all these variations. You look at his pace and you think, oh, he's nothing special. He's not bowling 140, 145, but his economy rate, his wicket efficiency is really incredible because he's such a cagey operator, especially in these death over scenarios. This is about what you get out of him. Typical spell for Rusty Taran in T20 cricket on the franchise scene in the U.S. is 1 for 18, 2 for 18.
As this one's hit up into the air on the leg side. Gonna fall short of any fielder, but Gattapalli able to get Dane Pete onto strike, who you have to imagine is who Samp Army would like to play the bulk of these deliveries. For Dane Pete, it's just the same field. Deep backward square, deep mid wicket, a long on, and a deep cover. And suggesting that back of a length and on stumps. Oh, it goes with the bluff, and Pete able to squeeze that one away. Really nicely done. Squeeze that Yorker, looking for 2, and looks like Jessica Merlotter let that one go, thinking it was going to crash onto stumps, and able to get 2 runs there. Really crafty shot there from Dane Pete.
And it looked like Sarvjit Lada was the fielder there at fine leg, who just missed the opportunity to run him out on the second.
Went Yorker. That first delivery to Pete. This time slows it down. Pete hits it in the air. Has he found the gap? No, he's only found the man who makes a running catch. Moving out to his right. Really well done by Nitish Kumar out there in the deep, who we'll get to see with the bat in hand. And Dane Pete trying to accelerate, trying to make something happen. Can only find Nitish Kumar.
Oh, the Canadian, the former captain for Canada, coming south of the border to show why he's been one of the top fielders on the associate scene for all these years. Usually he's somebody who, in the early overs, you see it slip or at backward point. He's got excellent hands wherever he is on the field. And now he's been based in Texas for a few years now, and he's shown how valuable he is in all facets of the game. We haven't really seen him with the ball. He's somebody with Canada. He's a maximum quota bowler for Canada, and he's going to make a huge impact with the bat. It's the expectation later on today, but already in the field, that's not an easy catch with these windy conditions, but he judged it well off the bat, covered the ground well, and from our vantage point at long off, it looked like he had it comfortably covered from start to finish, Alan.
Yeah, it looked like he picked it off the bat really early and was able to get out to his right quickly as Ali Khan comes into the middle. And a big appeal from Rusty Theron, gets down on his knees, but said no, and it'll be runs straight away, and a single to get Karthik Gittapalli on strike. As that'll close out this 19th over, 110 for a loss of 7.
Yeah, so much of the attention on the roster sheets has been from players with international experience in the test playing world. Guys like Corey Anderson and Liam Plunkett, Unmuk Chan, Cheyenne Jayasuriya, but arguably one of the top performers, whether it was last year in the MLC Challenge and during minor league, has not been from a test nation. It's been from Canada. Nitish Kumar has been exceptional, and I think he's kind of forgotten about it in some ways, lost in the shuffle of some of these other big names. You almost forget that he was an outstanding performer for Canada for the better part of a decade, and he's somebody who I'll be very curious to see where he goes in the draft process. He's going to get snapped up. That's a given. But where he goes, you wonder how much scouting some of these franchises do, how shrewd they will be in terms of analyzing some of the options, because, again, he's a triple threat. He's excellent on the field. Wherever you put him on the boundary or inside the ring, he can give you 4 overs of off spin if you need it in the conditions. And then batting-wise, he's very versatile. He's always a favorite in my book, Aman. Do you know why? Don't think too hard about this, Aman. He loves the reverse sweep. He's an excellent player of the reverse sweep. He's never afraid to pull that out.
Well, we've seen Ali Khan try some innovation here to start this final over. Tried to scoop that first delivery, and Calvin Savage pushed it away from him, and this time tried to attack Calvin Savage, and unable to do so. Got to find some runs for Ali Khan to bowl at in the second innings. This one hit straight up. Who wants it? Point settling underneath it, swirling in the air, and makes no mistake in the end. Good, safe hands out there. And again, that'll be the end of Ali Khan, and the 8th wicket falls for Samp Army.
And I believe it's Sarvjit Lada who took the catch. And again, in these conditions, that's arguably one of the most difficult chances you'll get all day, one that goes straight up in the air, because if it gets high enough in the wind, it's just going to swirl and swirl and swirl. You can see in a typical situation, his feet would have been settled much, much earlier without that much wind, but the wind swirling, he's got to continue to track the ball, but he had a good stable base, took it comfortably in the end.
Took it comfortably, and that'll be Calvin Savage's 3rd wicket of the day. And again, more importantly, it's a dot ball, and Samp Army looks like they're going to be stranded below 120, barring some miraculous power hitting from the 2 men out there in the middle. And it's Imran Khan Jr. out there in the middle, who fends away a Yorker there from Calvin Savage. And you hear the cry out in the field, a wicket maiden in the final over. Something very rare to see, and something that we're on the cusp of here.
If he does get Wicket made. He might just snap into a Slim Jim. I'm on Savage. Ooh, yeah.
Well, he's one delivery away from it as Imran Khan just tried to throw everything at it. And pretty calm there for someone who might just snap into a Slim Jim is Calvin Savage. He's got just a smile on his face. Just kind of, that was a little Michael Jordan shrug there, Peter, was it?
Michael Jordan. I'm thinking more Macho Man. Macho Man. I like it.
Well, final delivery of this 20th over. Imran Khan pushes it up in the air. His fielder coming underneath it. Yes, and it's a double wicket made in here in the 20th. And that also means that's 4 wickets for Calvin Savage. And a brilliant spell from him and the UMMC Knight Riders. Comprehensive first innings for them. No doubt about who's going to be happier heading into the dressing room.
Ooh, yeah, Savage. What a spell. New ball. Middle overs, death spell. Macho Man, Calvin Savage.
Just showing off all the traits as Calvin Savage. We saw it all minor league season with the Chicago Tigers. First up, let's take a look at this batting card. Just nothing to speak of. David White showed some shots early on, getting to 20. Lahito Malanta undone early by Calvin Savage. Sudath Gowda had one shot down the ground, but Calvin Savage with that brilliant take off his own bowling. And then you talk about the spinner. Ludda, he came in brilliantly, chopped on Obis Pianar, and again, nothing to speak of later on. And with the ball in hand, is that man who's going to snap into a Slim Jim, Peter. Calvin Savage, 4 overs, 19 runs, 4 wickets. Don't forget about Sarvjit Ladda with 2 wickets as well.
That Savage spell, just the ways he took his wickets. Got one caught behind. That catch off his own bowling was arguably the best of the lot. But then at the death here, one skied up to point, but then again, the cleverness using the conditions. That last wicket, banging it in short and wide outside off stump. Dare you to try and clear the boundary when you're going to have to hit through a 25 to 30 mile per hour gusting wind when the wind is blowing in off that boundary. Never in a million years was that ball ever going to have any chance of clearing the rope. So he's using the conditions to get the ball to hang up in the air and trusting his fielders. And he's got a 4-wicket haul to his name with a double wicket maiden at the death. That is mighty, mighty impressive, Aman.
Very impressive indeed, and so were the UMMC Knight Riders. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back for the second innings where the Knight Riders, they'll need 111 to go ahead and win.
Watch his cream of the crop promo. He's the best promo man ever. Savage. You gotta watch it. Him and Mean Gene opening. No, not even close. No love for the Rock in these promos.
Sometimes you have in this part of the country golf ball size here, or maybe baseball size here. If you leave your car outside and that happens, yeah, it would break the windshield, but that does not very often. Is your camera? Yeah. You have a camera? You ever seen Ryan out with his camera? I'm a big photographer. You use it? Not here, but like yesterday when it's just a showpiece.
He's gonna use it to go bash you over the head with it. I'll use it on you.
You have to focus it.
Alright, first home. Zoom into perfect hair.
said was daylight savings?
Yeah, Peter.
I slept through it.
Forward. Not back.
Spring forward.
We sprung forward.
Yeah. So I lost an hour of sleep.
Well, that's why I felt like I was like, there's no way it's 8 o'clock. I haven't slept on it. I felt. Ah, alright, now it makes sense.
Look, at some point, we're going to have to realize that that's the dumbest tradition that we have. Just stop doing it.
Apparently, it was started by Ben Franklin. I don't know.
How is it still relevant?
They think that you
What are
get
you
more
talking
than
about? America's all about sticking to shit from 1777.
My God, yes. Apparently the reason was,
Thinking behind daylight savings.
It was for farmers.
is it farmers?
But you don't get more than the day.
No, you don't, because you just start it earlier and finish it later.
And you
It's the
only
same shit.
feel it for like a couple days.
Right.
Why do we have it?
Exactly.
Give us more sleep.
My God. I will say this. In the fall, that extra hour of sleep, that hits.
It's
That
different.
hits different.
For 2 days, it's like, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Now, that does make a difference.
Like,
I will
I've
say that.
never had been better in my life. And then on day 3, you're like, oh, it's the same. Those 2 days, though? Pristine. Peak. Let's have those 2 days all year. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Just
Especially if you have nothing to do that Sunday.
Yeah,
Oh my God, that extra hour.
Especially
that
if
needs to
you're
be
hungover
Super Bowl.
that
Super Bowl
Sunday.
Sunday, they gotta find a way. Super Bowl
You know what?
Sunday's gotta
Boom.
happen.
Let's start a trend to have that be when it happens. Super Bowl Sunday.
As soon as Super Bowl ends, clock goes back an hour. And then you go to sleep, you feel good.
That's what we did.
Uh, you know what? Let's wrap that up in a formal proposal somewhere and send it to somebody.
Congress, here you go.
Congress,
Roger
boom. Here you go.
He can get anything.
Hey, Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
Yo, what's up, man?
I don't.
Good, how you doing? Good to see you, man.
You know, we're having a night rider since I got it.
I love you guys.
Boom, there it is. And look, right there. My God.
We have 2 players in it.
That's all we
Ali got
got
injured.
I
Ali.
need.
Ali Shafiq Karma is injured.
That's my
Really?
condition.
He's on our team. They're on our team too.
Yeah. So how did it get injured?
Oh, Karma?
Yeah.
When they had the fast bowlers at the combine a week before.
Yeah.
So they were bowling so when he pulled his groin. Same as Ali just pulled his groin. So, and it's not like an
Cold,
easy
what
fix.
did it?
I'm not sure what exactly happened.
Oh, no.
Like,
The
Karma
groin
was-
is not an easy fix
yeah,
at all.
Karma
You can't
was-
bandage it either.
Yeah, Karma was injured before the game. Ali got injured by bowling.
Yeah.
Y'all make your graphics on camera?
Most of the time. Not the motion graphics. Usually. So
I like camera too.
For motion graphics, do you have a bunch of stills that you just like?
I mostly there's this guy, there's an Indian guy on YouTube. His name's Nikhil actually. But he's
Nick, no
sorry.
way.
No way.
Multi-talented? No way.
His channel's named Dope Motions.
Okay.
And he just has tutorials on
Okay.
editing. So I just follow him. But I didn't like, I was ass at motion graphics.
Oh, I
college.
hate motion
Yeah.
graphics. They're the
Oh yeah, in
worst.
college it was just like, I don't want to do this. I want to edit or like do camera shit, you know?
Yeah.
But actually now, like being in the industry for it, like motion graphics, you get a job.
No, I have a buddy in motion graphics. He's like, dude, some of the I don't know how people in this class don't already have like 7-figure jobs.
Yeah.
They just do this crap. It's like,
Honestly, YouTube is the best resource for that.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you. All is well.
Yes, sir. So
hello and welcome back to match 2 of this MLC Champions Open in Prairie View, Texas, the Prairie View Cricket Complex. I'm Om Patel. I'm joined by Peter Della Pena here for this second innings where Samp Army are going to try to defend 111 that they put up, and it'll be UMMC Knight Riders looking to chase that one down. And they're going to start with Noman Anwar and Udmuk Chand, 2 of the best bats. in minor league cricket. Unmukchand came in and immediately made a splash in 2021, leading his team, the Silicon Valley Strikers, to a championship. And Noman Anwar, he's done the same. Came in and made a splash immediately. Hit 100 in his first innings, 119, averaging 41, 141 strike rate. But it's Ali Khan with new ball in hand, creates an edge and just flies away from point. And this is why Ali Khan's such a hot commodity. You know he's going to be gone very early on in this draft come next Sunday. But very important, very key for Ali Khan and Samp Army to get off to a good start and take wickets early, Peter.
And he's showing why he's the alpha dog in the USA bowling setup. Not just with his pace, but getting to bowl with the wind at his back to make it hurry on to these batters even quicker than normal. And he's here while the rest of the USA squad is in India right now because he's one of a couple players. Usman Rafiq is another. Shayan Jahangir is the third one. Players with Pakistani heritage just couldn't get a visa in time to get into India. So USA's loss, at least on the warm-up tour, is MLC's gain in this 4-day event. And Ali Khan, somebody who's been on numerous Knight Riders squads around the world. Abu Dhabi Knight Riders, Trinbago Knight Riders. And you've got a Knight Riders franchise as part of the 6 teams in the MLC setup. And so I think all eyes are going to be on the draft day to see if the Knight Riders franchise here is going to snap him up. As we see Ryan Tendescata, part of the Knight Riders setup, walk across us here.
I think it's a pretty safe assumption to say he'll be playing Major League in LA. I'm sure that's someone who's high on their draft boards, and why not? Someone with express pace can move the ball both directions, can bowl up front at the end, does have the variations, and again, it's going to be very key for Samp Army if they want to avoid a huge loss here in their first match, in match number 2 of the whole Champions Open. Bowling it into Noman Anwar. This one you can see just hurries on to Anwar and nowhere to go. So 2 dots consecutively as Ali Khan, like you said, with the wind in his back, routinely is getting it to 130, 140. He's probably feeling upper 130s right now, probably a little bit over 140 at the moment.
And this is one of the first opportunities fans in the USA would have seen for Ali Khan too, since his injury. Had that broken arm, required surgery. He was hit by a drive against Jersey back in the T20 World Cup qualifier in Zimbabwe last June. And he looks completely fit here today. He wears, you can see he's got a black kind of armband, wristband that covered some white tape. He's got his arm taped up, so it was his right arm, his bowling arm, where the injury happened. And he says he feels 100%. When I asked him before play, he just said he tapes it up. It's more of a mental thing. Just gives him the reassurance and the extra bit of confidence. But in terms of functionality, he's back to 100%.
This one will cut back in. I'm not sure Ali Khan's ever going to need a little bit more confidence. Very confident cricketer. As that'll end the first over. 3 runs come from it. 3 without loss.
Just having a light moment there with umpire Owen Brown. And Ali Khan, he's been based in the Houston area for some time now. The story with him when he first rose up to prominence in the USA national team, he was based out of Dayton, Ohio at the time, but he's since relocated to the Houston area a couple years ago. And makes his home here now. And we're going to get Sivakumar, who was part of that team that was in Zimbabwe, played just the 1 match against Zimbabwe. Check the 1 match against Netherlands in Zimbabwe, pardon me. It was the semifinal match against the Netherlands, where it was Basteleda who was the hero for the Netherlands to take them to the T20 World Cup. And Just imagine where USA could have been. You know, the Netherlands wins that semifinal. They go to the World Cup, and then they beat a couple teams in the opening round. They beat Zimbabwe. They beat South Africa. They deny South Africa a chance to go to the semifinals. They did the African sweep. They beat Namibia in the opening round. They beat Zimbabwe. They beat South Africa. And just imagine, USA could have been in that spot. That could have been USA bringing all that fame and notoriety to the national team in cricket in the country. Just such small margins in associate cricket, as this one is flayed off a thick outside edge to deep third, and sharp running by Unmukchand to come back to make it too. But there's so many fans who can think back to that time in Zimbabwe where USA was just that close to qualifying for their first ever T20 World Cup. They don't have to qualify 2024 obviously as co-hosts, but Netherlands, who really flopped a year earlier in the UAE after having won the T20 World Cup qualifier a couple years earlier in 2019. They came back with a vengeance.
And Sivakumar Duvabarapu, like you mentioned, was in Zimbabwe against Netherlands there. He's played minor league cricket for the Mooresville side the past 2 years. This past year with the Mooresville Raptors, and has been a key bowler for them up front. Has dealt with a couple of injuries this past season, so wasn't able to play as consistently as he would have liked, but someone who's played under 19s for an Indian side, and someone who can move, generally brings the ball in, but also able to angle it and move it away. So very valuable asset here, and again, going to need to look to strike early and try to get these early wickets, put the rest of this stacked batting order for UMMC under pressure. As this one's just pushed into the offside, and the problem here for Samp Army is the scoreboard is never really going to demand a lot of pressure. It's going to have to be manufactured by the bowlers, and whether that is through dot balls or whether that's just through excellent bowling, attacking the stumps and getting wickets that way. You don't really see a false shot coming out from either of these two. As this one's up in the air, it's over the top of the offside as he's given some width, and he's put it all the way along to the boundary. The first boundary of the second innings, and an expensive over to start things off for Sivakumar Duvavarapu.
Yeah, at the pace that he bowls at, there's very little margin for error. Gets the length wrong, and there isn't that variable bounce. The ball's just going to sit up to be whacked. And that's exactly what Anwar did just there.
This time straighter onto the legs, and it's just clipped around to fine leg where Ali Khan is standing. And we'll just keep it to one, but runs coming off every single delivery from the over. And that'll do it. 2 overs gone, 14 without loss. Again, we mentioned Unmukchand and Noman Anwar. Just 2 really good bats, and not known for, especially Unmukt being an explosive bat, but more stroke players, able to find gaps and time the ball around and facilitate. But they do have the ability to take over innings whenever possible as Ali Khan continues his spell. As this one sits straight back down the ground as Anwar picked up on the length early. And again, he's hit so many big runs and scored so many. And that just becomes so easy for him. 4 more for Noman Anwar.
Yeah, Ali Khan being a Yorker bowler, the issue with that is, of course, if you get the length fractionally wrong, that's what happens. Just sits up in the slot to be walloped back over the bowler's head, down the ground through mid-on, mid-off.
This one back of a length, it's just pushed into the offside, where Obis Pino will keep it just to 1.
Obis, come on now. Hoodie in the field, that's a fine. That's a club fine right there. You can't be wearing a hoodie in the field, no matter how cold it is. I know we're in the prairie; it's a bit chilly out there, but Samp Army, if they do a fine system after the game, Obis is getting fined for that one.
Well, that's a bold statement, Peter. No matter how cold it is, I don't know if I'd agree with you on that one. The temperature has decreased quite a bit. Wind swirling around and definitely gusting through. And I had a chat with Brian Walters. He said one thing about Texas is if you don't like the weather, just wait a little bit, it'll change. I think we're all waiting for it to heat back up.
Well, and at the moment, he's not the only player who'd be facing a fine right there. I can count.
And that one's over the top of another player who was in a little bit of a hoodie. That one's going to be 4 for Unmukjan, who just helped it over the top. He used the pace of Ali Khan, and 4 more for the Knight Riders.
I count 5 players in the field wearing hoodies. Half the team would be donating to the tip jar at the end of play. And no matter what they're wearing in the field, they're not stopping the boundaries. And this over off of Ali Khan. This one over backward point. Yeah, I wonder if Justin Giel if he's running a fine jar, a tip jar for guys wearing hoodies in the field in this tournament. If Samp Army isn't running a fine jar, Justin Giel might be.
Well, Ali Khan, after being hit for 2 boundaries in the over, is going to need to find a way to reel things back in. Goes back to the length, just run down. No run on offer. And again, no need to force things if you are the Knight Riders. Plenty of time to work with, plenty of deliveries to work with. Only needing 88 runs to cross the line. And with plenty of bats to come, no need to force anything.
Yeah, they've got all the time in the world, and with this start, at the moment, they're going to canter to victory. It's just a matter of, do they want to get out of that canter and get into a full-blown gallop through to the finish line?
Again, the wind gusting around Prairie View Cricket Complex as one fielder just outside the circle, deep third man, so an attacking field set by Obis Pinar. Short, pulled away. There is that deep backward square, but he can only sail and watch it over his head. He's going to find 6 runs with Mukchand. Latched onto it early. And I hadn't seen that fielder before. That fielder was in play, but not for very long.
Yeah, well, looks like it might be Dane Pete out there. But again, it just shows the difference in the wind conditions. He didn't really middle that one. It was just a wristy flick, but you try and do that to the east boundary, that's going to be a catch. This time, even though we hit it quite flat, the wind just helps the ball take off dramatically going to the west side boundary.
This time looking to go over the offside, misses out. Ali Khan a little bit more pace, a little more oomph on that one. And a dot ball to close out yet another expensive over. 29 with that loss after 3.
Yeah. The other difference there, you would have needed a cornet dry field man out there, a deep square leg. You needed a tall glass of water out there to latch onto that one. I don't think Dane Pete is going to be leaping up and grabbing that, unfortunately.
Well, Zubin was out there, and he took it outside the rope, and some part of me just wishing that he was inside the rope as well. But as you mentioned, nobody was going to be out there to catch that delivery. And we're going to get to see a change in bowling. No more Sivakumar Duparapu, but it's going to be the MVP from the 2022 minor league season in Funny Samadri. Excuse me, no, it will not be. It's going to be Imran Khan Jr., rather, warming things up. And
are you sure it's not catching on Singh? I don't know. On the back of the jersey says G. Singh. Could have fooled me, Yaman.
Throwing out different names in there, but it is going to be Imran Khan Jr.
Is that a fine for the fine jar there, Justin Giel? Another one there.
And this one's beautifully punched off the back foot. Anwar just sat up on it, waited for that length, got the room he was looking for, and starts off this 4th over like we finished the last one with a 4.
This is a gorgeous shot. Again, on a pitch where there's been uneven balance, that's a length delivery. That's not over pitched You got to hit that on the up. You need to time it well, and he did so.
This time cut, but only to the fielder standing there at cover. Really sharp work by Dane Pete. He's got the tape over that right index finger.
And much more agile effort than what he did on the boundary just moments ago, where that 6 sailed over his head.
This time rolls his fingers over the ball and is pulled away into the gap. And he's going to find 4 more. Numwan Anwar putting his mark on this innings already.
Well, the UMMC Knight Riders look like they're playing on a different wicket, and Samp Army batted on in the first innings. This one, right idea with a slower ball, but just dragged it down a bit too short and sat up. And Numwan Anwar just thumps it through the gap. There were 2 boundary riders in the power play here, both from on the leg side, one at long on and one at deep mid wicket, and he bisected both of them beautifully. Again, it just shows what a good shot that was. Even with Sivakumar out there as part of the boundary protection, still was able to pick the gap.
This time goes pace on and closer to the body. A little bit fuller as well. And will lead to a dot ball. And it begs a question, with these 2 batters enjoying pace and finding comfort with the pace, when do you see the likes of Obis Pinar and Dane Pete being brought onto bowl?
Well, Obis looks like he's itching for the ball. He's at mid-off here.
This one fuller and just pushed into the leg side for 1.
You can't wait too long. With the target where it is today and the required run rate already well under a run a ball. If you're pushing for a victory rather than just scouting evaluation, you got to get these guys on, your premium bowlers, especially your premium spinners, on sooner than later.
Slows it down again, hits the pad. It looked like it was pitching outside the leg stump. And they'll just scamper 1 off of the leg by to end the 4th over. UMMC 39 without loss.
There's a lot of movement there. That one swung in sharply as well.
And Peter Della Penna did move in, and there's, again, a use of wind. We'll see where they elect to go from here. And they're going to continue with pace. It's going to be Shadley Van Skalkovic. Again, he bowled the final over in the 2022 minor league season for the Seattle Thunderbolts as they lifted the cup and led his team to victory. Didn't really have a day with the bat, looking to make up for it with the ball in hand. And again, we saw early success from Justin Dill and Calvin Savage bowling that hard length, using their height and getting the ball to just have that little extra bit off of that length delivery. We'll see if he goes the same tactic. Does go on a length and just worked into the leg side. Gonna think about 2, and they're gonna get 2 runs in the end as well. It's good running here from the Knight Riders.
Yeah, it's something that it's also been impressive. It's not just that they found the boundary early on here. These first 4+ overs, the running between the wickets has been quite sharp as well. Very confident between Umuk Chand and Numwan Anwar.
This one inner half of the bat as he comes down the track. Unmunked and stopped there by Obis Pinar just for 1. And then Samp Army's going to need someone to put the brakes on this Knight Riders innings. Whether that's going to be a spinner, whether it is going to be Shadley Van Skalkovic. They're going to need to find someone to just start taking wickets because only 69 runs are required here for the Knight Riders, who are just cruising along at the moment. Hit straight back. He's taken out. Leg stump there. Noman Anwar, you can see how powerfully that was struck, and had it not found, that leg stump could have been racing away to the boundary and into the neck of the woods.
Well, Samp Army will take all the help they can get in the field right now. And that anthropomorphic 12th man, the non-striker Stumps, helping out in a big way. Saving 4 runs.
Again, you see if this just miss any couple of inches over to the left, and that's a certain boundary, as this one is up in the air and has found the fielder. And there you go, that's wicket number 1. The Stumps save the 4, and Shadi Van Skolkovic gets Noman Anwar to find one out to find leg. Umulchand almost helped one to the same man this time. Van Skolkovic gets his man.
Well, Dane Pete, we saw one just clear him a few overs earlier, but this time Noman Anwar just got under that a little bit too much. Didn't have as much power behind that. That previous 6 that was hit in that direction was flat, and once it got up into the wind, it just sailed over because it had more power behind it. This time, it just not enough juice on it. A bit more of a top edge, bit more wrist work in that one than really the heart of the bat behind that ball, and it just hung up there for Dane Pete to track a good 15 yards and take the catch just inside the rope. And it brings Jaskaran Malhotra to the wicket. In case you're not sharp enough to see the number 4 on his back, he sticks out like a sore thumb today. Because he's got that bright fluorescent orange Delhi Bulls helmet on his head he's been wearing today.
Someone who's found his way into some franchise cricket after his 6 sixes against PNG and joined that exclusive club. He's going to try to find a way into a club through the draft here by performing in this combine.
Poor Gowdy Toka. Gowdy Toka is not going to be one of the players drafted in the MLC. I know that much.
Well, Jaskaran pulls this one. Fielder well too far in front of square for that one. That was hit well fine, and an easy way, a welcome way to get off the mark for Jaskaran Malhotra.
And again, recognizing the conditions, knowing that the wind is going to help him in that direction with fine like up in the ring. It's an easy boundary. And Andres Koos and Jagan Namani not really interested in trying to field that ball beyond the rope.
This time slows it down, keeps it on stumps, and just fended away. And that'll be the end of the 5th over. A wicket down finally for Samp Army, as it's 46 for loss of 1.
Well, this one coming to a conclusion in a hurry, especially from a UMMC perspective. It's just 65 now needed from the remaining 90 deliveries, so should be an easy run chase, but of course an opportunity for these UMMC batters have an opportunity to be in the middle, spend time in the middle, and showcase their skill. And speaking of skill, Peter Delapena, this young man coming into bowl, Fani Samadri, what a bowler he is. 46 wickets in the minor league was unbelievable for the Seattle Thunderbolts and ended up being a big part of why they won that tournament. Keep an eye on him, PDP.
And he's somebody who, you first see him, you think, how does he take all these wickets? He doesn't bowl express pace. And then you realize that that's a large part of the reason behind his success. He doesn't bowl with pace on the ball. He takes pace off. The overwhelming majority of his deliveries are slower balls, cutters, back of the hand deliveries. Got a lot of tricks, and he bowls one that just kind of almost falls off a table, the lack of pace on it. And that's one of the rare times you'll actually see pace on the ball. He's much more adept at taking wickets with the off-pace deliveries.
Yeah, I think all about that action, that slingy action, very low to the ground in terms of not a tall man Fani Samadri, and it makes it even more challenging because the ball just doesn't bounce. As you can see there, Umnuk Chan, sorry, having to get really low. And the weather conditions, Peter Dadapena, really intensified in terms of the cold.
I gotta say, I'm impressed with you, Nikhil. Short sleeves all day long. You've been undeterred.
Can only wear what you have. PDP would love a jacket because I'm surprised. Feels like 15 degrees Celsius here in Houston, and you've got that strong breeze as well. So the players out there, especially the faster bowlers, having to contend with the cold atmospheric conditions does play a part, especially when you're bowling and trying to get into a rhythm.
Well, you say the faster bowlers. If you're a spinner, it's not exactly easy to grip the ball either, especially for a leg spinner, which has made the spell both from Sarbjeet Lada and from Mohsen earlier all the more impressive, as you see Unmuk Chand on screen there.
Yeah, he took a slip there, Unmuk Chan. Lucky for him, he got back in the end.
That's the wicket-taking ball. That's the one that has been the specialty from Fani Samhadri. That's been getting him so many wickets in minor league cricket. And because you said, Nikhil, that trajectory, that slingy action, it just is so hard to pick up. And it has allowed him to fool so many players. They haven't really been able to adjust. And again here, we're seeing why Jaskaran Malhotra gets the timing thrown off.
This young man is a special talent, and I know for sure the scouts will be very interested in him. You look at Fani Samadri, though, the bowler, what a turnaround in terms of his career. I can't quite understand it. In 2021, 9 wickets in 9 matches, PDP. Came back the following year for the same team, the Seattle Thunderbolts, and picked up 46 wickets in 18 matches. That is some turnaround.
Well, the question is, can he do it again? It's the consistency. It's one thing to do it as a one-off, but is he able to maintain that? That's what people are going to look to keep an eye on as the power play ends at 48 for 1.
Yeah, not only that, but against high-quality batting as well, on conditions that will be different to what he would have played on in Seattle on much flatter surfaces on the West Coast. So this will be a challenge for him, but so far so good. Just 2 runs from his first over. Is there any way back for the Samp Army in this one?
Well, we'll see how the spinners operate. And it's going to be an important factor for sure. If and when they come on, they've got to come on at some point. There's only so many overs of medium pace that they've got up their sleeve. Is Shadley Van Skogvik keeps the ball for his second. You've got options here. Dane Pete, Obis Pinar.
Will be Van Skaalvik continuing for his second. Again on the money. I was quite surprised that he didn't get the new ball, Shadley Van Skaalvik, because he does tend to bowl it. A very good economy rate, less than 5 runs per over in that minor league season. And gives you 2 up front, gives you 2 at the back end.
Well, that also just shows the depth of options that you've got at this event here in Houston. Guys who would be new ball bowlers in one setup, all of a sudden you've got a squad that's blessed with as much depth and talent as this Samp Army team is. It's not a given that he's going to take the new ball. You don't have an Ali Khan at Seattle Thunderbolts. Ali Khan plays in Texas for his minor league franchise, but Fani Samhadri and Shadley Van Skogvik, members of that Thunderbolts squad.
Swing and a miss. I just wonder if Unmuk Chan decides he wants to just drop anchor and ensure that he gets them home. You don't have any quick collapse in this innings, but still, just 62 runs needed. So it should be pretty easy going from here. A lot of batting still to come. Mohamed Mohsin, Angelo Pereira, Nitish Kumar. Well, forget that about drop anchor. Unmuk Chan making his intentions very clear. He's going after it. Wants to get this over with. Maximum to him.
Again, the other thing to keep in mind here, with all these scouts watching, you've got a license to make a big statement here. You're not going to really get anybody's attention from the franchise scene if you're just going to knock singles around and coast to the target with 3 overs to spare. If you want to make an emphatic statement, you play shots like that. And that'll get you noticed. And I know Unmuk Chan has had some opportunities recently in the franchise scene. Melbourne Renegades, also played Bangladesh Premier League. And here in minor league cricket as well in the US with the Silicon Valley Strikers. So again, you've got a lot of people watching today. It's an opportunity to remind them of what he can do.
Didn't quite time it, but the intention, you can see how disappointed he is with missing out there, because just had to get it a foot wide of that mid-off fielder would have been a certain boundary. And that's what I love about Unmuk Chan at the crease. He's always thinking about the best way he can score a boundary, even when the field goes out, with 5 fielders outside the circle. Interesting that Van Skalvitz left both mid-on and mid-off up. Look at the bounce on that one. Past the head of Unmuk Chan. Good way to finish the over, just 7 from it. 55 for 1.
And Skogfake is not express, but he's just a very clever bowler. And again, you're seeing a little bit of the variable bounce here today. That's not the type of bounce you've seen even from the tall fast bowlers. You didn't really see Cornet Dry do that, or Ahsan Adil from that length. So very tricky conditions to negotiate at times for these batters out here, which again makes what we saw earlier today, you mentioned it, Tejinder Singh's performance all the more impressive. This has not really been an easy wicket at times to bat on, and Tejinder Singh bucking the trend of everybody else today here in Prairie View, Texas, with that half-century knock that he had. Still no spin, though. Fani Samhadri's going to continue for a second over.
It's been a watchful start from Jaskar Malhotra, just 6 from his first 8 deliveries. Man, of course, the second person in the history of cricket to hit 6 sixes in an over. You were there, Peter Delapena.
No, I was not. It was one of the few tours I missed out on. It was right after COVID restrictions were lifted in some places, but for Oman, I was not able to get a visa in time because they changed their COVID vaccine restrictions at the very, very last moment. I was vaccinated, but they were only allowing, at a certain point in time, only think 2 or 3 types of vaccines, and the one I had was not on the list of approved vaccines. By the time they finally did approve it, the Tri-Series and the tour was only a day away, and I just was not able to get a visa in time, so I missed out when Jaskar Malhotra took Gowdy Toka for 6 sixes and Musket at the Al Emirat Academy. Had to watch at home on the stream like just about everybody else in the world.
That right there, to cut you, Peter Delapena, but that's the cutter that Samadri bowls. The leg cutter that goes away. Sorry, really, the off cutter, correction, that completely grips in the surface. He's probably got the best slower ball, I think, in this entire tournament. You can see it there, and it just spins past the edge of Malhotra, and that's why Lahir Malanta's come up to the stumps as well. Excellent piece of keeping and good cricket from Samp Army.
And coming up to the stumps, though, it is a bit of a tell to Jaskar Malhotra, because the previous over he stayed back all 6 balls. Now that he's come up to the stumps, that's an indication to Malhotra that you're going to see an awful lot more cutters than you saw in the first over. In the first over, we only really saw 1 cutter. Expect him to pepper Malhotra with that ball throughout this over.
Now where did it hit him? Again, Rushain Samuels thinking it's going down leg. Leg by signal, thought may have been some bat on it. Potential on the bat leg as well, so I wonder if height was a problem.
And a bit interesting here. Prior to this over, so we'll take a look at the replay here. This one just may have been missing like some. You could see off some there. Prior to this over, Jaskar Malhotra took off his thigh guard, took off a lot of the extra protective equipment he had on. He decided he wanted a bit less restriction in terms of his protective gear. And almost on cue, after taking off all that extra thigh guard padding, he's nailed in the thigh right where he would have that protection in an exposed area just above the knee flap.
Wide signal. So Samadri, something he does struggle with at times. Some deliveries spraying down the leg side. It's hard to control that action at times. Slingy. Very sidearm action. Off the outside edge, more runs. Doesn't matter how they come at this stage for Unmuk Chan, into the 30s as well. Just 50 required for victory.
Yeah, third man up in the ring. You got to be very tight, and could argue that was somewhat intentionally played in that direction. Just looked like he opened up his wrists very late. Open up the bat face, get that fine. And Sivakumar is up in the ring at third man, so any edge down the leg side through fine leg or outside edge is going to go straight to the rope.
Two is the call straight away. Can he get them? Sent back in the end. Good call. Seeing Unmuk Chan again in the runs, Peter Dedapena. What prediction do you have in terms of how early he would go in that Major League draft next week? How important do you think he will be to teams picking?
Well, again, it's not so much the skill that you have to factor in when making these draft picks.
Easy catch and taken. Samadri in the wickets again. You call him, he answers. Again, getting one to just grip in the surface. This man has just got a knack for picking up wickets.
Well, I said he was going to pepper Malhotra with that slower ball cutter, as he was having trouble timing it. And again, you can see why he's had so much success with that delivery. That one just gripping. Malhotra threw the shot a touch too soon. He was trying to flick this through mid-wicket, and because of that outside cut on the ball breaking the other way, even though that was really on a poor length, it was much too full. It's not really where he intended it, but because it does grip, Malhotra's threw the shot early, comes off the leading edge, and it pops up for wicket, and Malhotra can't believe it. I'm sure a lot of other people watching are still scratching the head. How is Fani Samadri taking all these wickets? It's just that the variation that he provides keeps everybody off balance. But to answer your other question, going back, is Nitish Kumar is going to be the new batter entering, the former Canada player. You're not just picking guys based on skill. A lot of these guys, if they're a high draft pick, you're asking them to be the face of your franchise, and it's the off-field aspects. They're ambassadors. They're the people who you're building your culture around. And so, even though they might not be statistically the top performers in some cases, you're going to see the likes of Liam Plunkett, Corey Anderson, and Unmuk Chan more than likely go and be the first selection for a number of the franchises, because they want somebody who's going to be able to be a cornerstone in terms of the marketing, the brand recognition, all that stuff. You got somebody on your team who's an India under-19 World Cup winning captain. There's only a handful of those going around the world.
Dane Pete, first sign of spin for Samp Army. Now well outside this power play. He'd be looking to get some wickets as well. If they can just take 2 or 3 wickets in quick succession. You never know with this game of cricket, but just 4 runs and over needed. A very well set Unmuk Chan and Nitish Kumar, who's an international player as well, joining him.
Yeah, very distinguished career for Canada. Former captain. Played in the World Cup in 2011. I
think he could be one to watch in that draft as well. Just, I think, how much he's displayed his ability. Nitish Kumar went to the Caribbean in the Super 50, scored a couple hundreds. And gets through for the quick single. So Kumar off the mark.
He's somebody in this part of the world is very, very highly respected. Within the Americas, his reputation is sterling. The issue is the franchises, the ownership, the leadership that are coming in with IPL links, who haven't had as much opportunities to scout these players locally. You wonder, is somebody like him going to slip through the cracks in the early rounds and then he becomes a steal in the middle rounds? If you have ownership that's based in North America, you'd expect him to go in the first 3 rounds, such as his quality, Nitish Kumar. But depending on the level of scouting that's being done from the leadership that's coming from the Knight Riders franchise or Super Kings franchise, or from Cricket New South Wales or Cricket Victoria, these players don't have the same level of profile in those parts of the world. And so that's why an event like this becomes so crucial from the scouting aspect, giving these teams an opportunity over the course of these 4 days to get a closer eye on some of the players who they might not have seen as often as singles take the score to 66 for 2 after 9 overs. And that's really going to be where the difference is made. You know, it's not necessarily, in my view, the overseas players that really make the difference in a lot of these championships. It's, do you get the most value out of your local draft picks or your local auction selections? Because in terms of supply and demand, you can always find an overseas player to come in and contribute, but it's a lot harder supply and demand-wise to pick out the best locally eligible players, or players who are defined as locals, as Kumar is nowadays, because he's been based in Texas for a few years now. So can you capitalize on those local selections? And if you do, that's going to tip the scales heavily in your favor in a franchise league.
Well, one thing that the franchises will look to is that Global T20, which happened in Canada with a lot of high-profile internationals. And Nitish Kumar did well back in that 2018 season, playing for the Toronto Nationals. So he does have that against high-quality bowlers. And, of course, along with his international achievements as well. So if he comes and does well in this week of matches, you just never know when it comes to Sunday's draft.
It feels like a lifetime ago, the Global T20 Canada. 2018 and 2019, and of course that's where Ali Khan made his big splash with the Winnipeg Hawks that first season. And that's what got him noticed. Of course, he had played in the U.S. Open. Is going to get an overthrow here. Sloppy fielding here from Samp Army. They're going to get 2 overthrows. This is brilliant running, brilliant recognition between Nitish Kumar and Umang Chand to capitalize on really poor work in the field from Samp Army. But
that was excellent, really, to turn 1 into 3. And it just tells you how agile these two in the middle are. Made it look extremely easy.
You've got, you know, events like this, events like the U.S. Open, the Unity Cup, different events on the U.S. franchise scene. That's where Ali Khan got noticed, first of all, by Dwayne Bravo. Dwayne Bravo was playing at the U.S. Open as a teammate of Ali Khan, and then that led to the opportunity with Winnipeg Hawks, and that led to an opportunity with Trimbago Knight Riders, and led to opportunities in the Bangladesh Premier League, Pakistan Super League, led to an opportunity to be part of the squad for the Kolkata Knight Riders when the IPL was played in the UAE. So these things all get linked together. But again, it's a case of Dwayne Bravo was here for the U.S. Open. That's how he got discovered. So, you know, Global T20 Canada being a couple years ago, it's going to test the memory banks of some of these franchise leaders to see how much they were paying attention back in 2018, 2019, to know how good Nitish Kumar was, to know how good he was for Canada all throughout the decade of the 2010s. At a time when we take for granted nowadays, all the ODIs are shown around the world. They're all broadcast in terms of the Cricket World Cup League 2, but when Nitish Kumar was playing for Canada, the overwhelming majority of matches on the associate scene were not broadcast. So he was playing a career in the dark, essentially, which was a real shame because when he was at his peak for Canada, And performing as one of the lead batters in the associate world, most of his matches were only seen by a handful of people. You had to be in the ground to witness his greatness.
But this will be runs, but just one of them. There's that protection. Ends the 10th over, halfway stage. Pretty much set for victory, UMMC, 72 for 2.
Ten overs gone in this second innings of the second match of the MLC Champions Open, where the UMMC Knight Riders just need 39 runs, and it's at cruise control now as Dane Pete continues his spell. I'm Patel, joined by Brian Walters in the box as Pete comes in, and again, this quick running between the two in the middle continues, and they'll just take one to get Nitish Kumar back on strike. Brian, it's just been total domination from the Knight Riders.
That domination started from well before this innings or this half innings, because very honestly, when you choose to bat first and you only put 110 runs on the board, effectively you've already lost the battle. And any normal cricket, batting-wise, would have gotten the UMMC Knight Riders home. But so far, they've really dominated things. Lost a couple wickets, yes, but they're well ahead of the, well north of the required rate. Now only under 4. It's 3.83. And so, you know, Aman, you and I can go out there and get 4 runs and over.
As this one's pushed into the leg side, and they're doing just that. And I think the impressive thing for the Knight Riders is when Samp Army was out there batting, it just looked like this. You couldn't score off this wicket. There weren't going to be any easy runs coming, and you've seen the flurry of boundaries. Now, the Knight Riders haven't scored a boundary in some time. It's because they haven't had to. They've just been pushing the balls around. But they've shown with shots like this that they're able to find boundaries. The innovation there, the reverse sweep comes out, showing he's got all the shots. Nitish Kumar gets himself 4, and Peter Della Pena having a good time with the monopod now right in front of us, trying to reenact that sweep shot.
Good looking sweep shot. Look, those innovative types of shots are always on the card with players of this established caliber. Nitish Kumar. Now 7 from 9. Unmukhchand is the one of the two who's more likely to play that reverse sweep. He's up to 37 from 25.
Again, like you were saying, they just haven't had to play any of those shots. They haven't been forced, and they've played them when they've wanted to play them. Versus Samp Army, you felt at some point they needed to play those shots and just never got into the ability to do so, never felt like they were really going after it. And by the time they were trying to, it was just too little too late. As this one's just clipped away for 1. They could push for 2, and they will. And again, something we didn't see a lot of in the first 2 matches, as there was a fumble out on the field, was the batters pushing the fielders for these 2s, and these 2 have found the pockets in the field and have able to find multiple 2s and things like that. 11 overs gone, 82 for the loss of 2.
Look at that. And Aman, easy as you like. 10 runs from this over without any effort whatsoever. The reverse sweep probably was the only thing that sort of implied any sort of urgency, but they're doing it just as easily as possible. From now on, only needing around 3 runs and over. 29 runs remaining. You and I think are going to have a short day's work the rest of the way, because despite a good, solid bowling attack, this bowling attack that the Samp Army has been made to look relatively pedestrian. And yes, a couple wickets have fallen, but 82 runs, scoring at the rate of 7.45 and over. They could have chased 50 more runs than what this target is without any fuss, it feels like.
And it adds an interesting question as Imran Khan Jr. comes back into the attack and is pulled for a single. Was this track really that hard to bat on? Look at this, converting that into 2. They're going to attempt it. They hit it quick on the stumps, and I don't think the umpire is giving the finger. Little thumbs up from Unmukhchand, and this would be close, and we'll get back to that thought. But again, they called 2 from the very beginning after that fumble. Throw came in really nicely from David White. Malanta, so quick.
Oh, that's good work.
And it's
That is
really good work there from Nitish Kumar and the umpire out there. It looked pretty good from this angle, from our vantage
Yes.
point. Slower ball tucked into the leg side. But it brings up the question, was this track that hard to bat on in that first innings, or does it just speak to how good the bowling was from the Knight Riders?
It certainly indicated good bowling, but what it also did was, to me, indicate a lack of intent. You didn't see necessarily a lot of urgency. You didn't see, anything innovative like a reverse sweep or anything along those lines.
As this one's pulled into the leg side, might have bisected the fielders. Nope, good work to keep it to just 2. And that's Abhiram Bolasetti, who's out there in the field doing some dirty work. Not in the playing 11 today, but you'd have to imagine at some point over these next 4 match days, he'll get out there and with either bat in hand or ball.
So that lack of urgency, I think, is more what dictated a relatively low score, undercooked score, rather than anything that the pitch was doing.
Again, it just felt that Samp Army were on the right track. They were able to find singles. You didn't really see them get dialed in into a bunch of dot balls, except for the overs that Sarbjit Ladda was bowling. Other than that, they were able to find singles pretty consistently, but it was just their inability to find those boundaries and just let the Knight Riders just go about their innings.
Oh,
And that's a good delivery, that from Imran Khan Jr. He's kind of been put on in a tough spot, really nothing to bowl for, but he's showing that he can bowl these different types of deliveries. He showed off the variations already in the over.
Imran Khan, 15 runs conceded so far from his 1 over and 5 balls. So hasn't been necessarily very frugal, but at the same time, you like the variety of the left arm over the wicket.
Another one with the fingers rolled. Quick single and a fumble in the infield is going to allow that single to happen, and that'll end the 12th over, 89 for the loss of 2. Brian, they're getting closer. Just 22 runs required off 8 overs. It feels like if it took 8 overs, then there might be a little bit of an issue. Bigger issues than just the cricket. Obis Pinar has the ball in hand, hasn't taken the jacket off, and he won't be taking the jacket off. He'll hand it off to one of his bowling options. And surprised that Obis didn't give himself an over maybe a little bit earlier on, but he's gone to Karthik Gittapalli, who's accustomed to bowling here at Prairie View as a member of the Houston Hurricanes.
Karthik Gittapalli, one of my favorite bowlers in the entire minor league system. Obis Pinar, don't know whether or not he's carrying any sort of an injury. He was carrying an injury late towards the back end of last year. I think he's pretty much healthy at this point, but question to be asked is, what's the purpose of bringing in one of your best bowlers when the opposition only needs 2.75 runs and over with 8 wickets in hand? So he may just get the idea, you know what, I'm a relatively established player, bearing in mind that this is sort of a dress rehearsal, as I said earlier. Let's give Karthik Gittapalli the ball to have these selectors have a look at him and see how well he can bowl.
Starts off right on the stumps and just a single pushed out to the offside. Karthik Gittapalli, a promising youngster who's played for the U.S. national team and U.S. under-19 team, and he's picked up wickets just in bunches here in minor league cricket. Always someone that Nate Hayes and I talk about as maybe an under-19 or under-21 player of the week, as you see Unmukjan come down the track, but just able to flash it to Obis Pinar.
No question. Had a less than stellar 2022 season, but mostly because he was injured for about half the season. When he's healthy, one of the better bowlers that you'll find anywhere in this league. Yeah,
and it's always, you see here across the world that finding left arm spinners is a luxury. Feels like in the U.S. we have a dime a dozen. They're just everywhere.
Goodness,
Ali
yes.
Sheikh, who's not even in the playing 11. Obis Pinar, who hasn't bowled. Karthik Gittapalli. They're just everywhere, flocking around. Look at that innovation.
Interesting.
Look to go with the switch hit. Saw the ball was drifting to the leg side and then said, okay, I'll just help it along its way. Not something you're going to see every day.
Very interesting.
And look at that there from Nitish Kumar, showing off the range of shots he possesses.
So, similar to the first game, it's all over about the shouting at this stage. Only another 19 runs needed for victory for UMMC. I happened to have been here last weekend. Well, not here, in the Houston area in Pearland at Musa. Oh, my goodness. I'll get back to that story because Unmukchan walks past a pretty straight delivery, and he has to go Kartik Gatipali with the wicket. Unmukchan has to go stumped, pretty easy stumping by Lahiru Milanta, and Kartik Gatipali as his first.
Well, there you go. He strikes straight away, and you can see it here. Umungtan just looking to come down the track and push it away. I'm just wondering, was there a little bit of a nick on it, or did it just turn away from him completely? Because that was pretty sharp, and Lahiru Milanta just had the easiest jobs of taking the bails. Maybe a little bit too late now.
Oh, look at that turn.
Look at that turn, and again, that's something that's going to get a scout to maybe look at you a little bit harder, and that'll end the 13th over, 92 for the loss of 3. So maybe a consolation prize there for Kartik Gatipali, and again, that's what you're looking at as you'll take a third look at it here. Again, the ball just haven't seen a lot of turn on offer.
Look at that.
I think there might have been a little nick on the way back, Brian. It just looked like it moved after. Again, just if you take another look at it.
Actually, if you note that umpire Owen Brown raised his finger.
I think there was a touch of a nick, and I think that's why Mukchan never looked to come back. Again, I think the stumping was just for good measure. I was just perplexed by the amount of turn that looked like it got off the screen. It looked like he didn't turn that much off the wicket in person. Sure. But there you go, a wicket nonetheless, and you'll take it if you are Samp Army, especially if you are Kartik Gatipali, especially of a player of Umungchan's notoriety.
Absolutely. And what's important is, regardless of the mode of dismissal, it's the amount of turn that he got that caused that wicket. So whether it was a stumping where the ball missed the bat entirely or caught behind where the ball kisses the edge of the bat, he still turns it past one of the best batters in the country.
And that'll bring out Angelo Pereira, the ex-Sri Lankan and a fan favorite. And to bowl to him is going to be Shadley Van Skalkovic with the ball in hand, and going to see if you can get a little bit of extra magic going. Just 19 runs required. Should just be a couple of overs left in this match, but could Samp Army make it interesting? This one crashed into the offside for 1. Again, just like this, it'll take them 3 overs to get to the target with singles. Samp Army is going to need 7 wickets if they want to pull off a miraculous win here. Again, seems more unlikely.
So Van Skalkovic so far started out his spell from the northern end of the ground, the forest end, but is now bowling from the highway end, and obviously a bowler of great repute. So far his spell is into his 3rd over, 1 wicket for 15 so far. So a good bowler, and you expect, I remember one delivery in particular, the last delivery of his 2nd over, that pitched on the length and absolutely took off. And that's sort of what you'd like to see from a fast bowler. Not known necessarily for express pace, more of a swing bowler. But he certainly has a few tools in that kit.
Well, you talk about that delivery that jumped up. Lahiru Milanta is not really caring about, not thinking about it, because he's up at the stumps right now. And again, it's something that Lahiru does quite often for the Morshall Raptors in minor league cricket, is he'll keep up to the stumps against pacers. And it's quite interesting. You risk, if they do stray in line, risk 4 off buys, but you just keep the batter rooted to their spot. So this one's just pushed into the offside, and he's going to find 1.
Yeah, so similar to the first game, it's sort of just waiting to see what the final score is going to be, because effectively this game is over. But once again, given that this is an invitational tournament where you are expecting for selectors and scouts to be looking and being able to say who wants to go higher up on the board, you want to see these opportunities given to these youngsters.
A good shot that, and good work in the field as well to keep that one to just 1 run, as Nitish Kumar showed off the high elbow there. And as you mentioned, it's moments like these that can turn heads, especially in a losing effort. Sometimes maybe not the highest ranked player, but someone who just comes out, doesn't seem to be lacking any effort out there, and is always willing to give everything. Someone you could always find in the back end of the draft and could think about taking with the last pick. And that's another way to make your mark out there, maybe not just on the score sheet, but just with your attitude. This one's pushed forward for 1.
Just another 15 runs needed. Last ball coming up in the 14th over. So yeah, the chances of this going all the way through to the 20th are probably remote. Nitish Kumar, 20 from 19 with a boundary. Angelo Pereira just faced 2 balls for his 1 run so far.
This one is going to be pushed into the offside and thinking about 2 and just going to settle for 1. And that'll do it for the 14th over. Just 14 runs required from the remaining 6. It's 97 for the loss of 3. And so, Brian, I hope it is Karthik Ettapalli coming back from the forest end, the northern end. After taking the wicket of Umukchand, why not bring him back in to bowl?
Yep, that is him coming back on. Karthik Attepale, once again, playing for the Houston Hurricanes right here in the Houston area. And just loads of wickets in the first season, the 2021 season. Chopped that number of wickets in about half in the second season, as I mentioned. He was injured for the majority of the season, but when he's on song, really good leg spinning or spinning bowler for the team.
Well, there we go. More an ovation there. Nitish Kumar, he's not going to settle down. Look to go for that reverse sweep and got it just over the top and just enough bat on it to get it for 4 runs. Take a look at this. Completely switched around. This time didn't follow him all the way into the leg side and gets it over point for 4.
Wow. Innovation, once again, everything here feels very much like it is a dress rehearsal. And the selectors are going to be looking to see who has the ability to play shots like that. Is it necessary in this circumstance? Probably not. But it's good to show that skill.
This time just a conventional sweep. Not going to find any runs for it. And you mentioned it, showing the ability to play those shots and now saying, well, hey, I'm not just someone who needs to bat at the top of the order and has to, see myself in. I can come in and play these unconventional shots in the middle overs, which is such a valuable thing, batting 4 and 5 in T20 cricket. It's what sets really good teams apart, having those really good 4 and 5, as that one goes through Obis Pinar in the infield. Again, I think that's a temperature, a wind, and just understanding what the score is at this point.
Under 10 runs needed now. 9 required from all of 33 deliveries. Oh my goodness, Aman, I hope we're not here for 33 more deliveries.
I think everyone's starting to pack it up. Again, it's been chilly for the past hour or so.
Yes.
As this one's flighted, chipped over the top of Obis Pinar. No one out there in the deep, and that'll cut that in half. 4 runs to Angelo Pereira.
Angelo Pereira just lofting that, deliberately elevating that ball over Obis Pinar, who is a tall man standing at extra cover. But this is played well over his head and nobody in the deep behind him. So just we're 1 stroke away from this game being finished. Probably more realistically, a handful of deliveries left.
This one cut into the offside, and that'll be 1 to make it any sort of boundary. Will end this affair between the two sides. And again, UMMC going to walk away with a handy win. Just in dominating fashion, a comprehensive win for sure. Showed it with both bat and ball. And just to add a little bit of pizzazz into the final, couple of deliveries.
It's a little gamesmanship. Nothing at all wrong with that.
This one finds the outside edge and is stopped in the infield. Nitish Kumar just gets back in time. It'll keep it to a dot ball to finish the 15th over. At the end of 15, it's 107 for the loss of 3.
Make sure net off is done.
Well, just 4 runs remain as Shadley Van Skalkvik comes back into the attack. And there we go, a good start for him and Samp Army into this 16th over.
I don't think even a battery reading on the light meter can save the Samp Army at this stage.
With just 4 runs left, I'm not sure the umpires are going to get that light meter out, Brian. This one's pushed forward, and Shadley, he's showing fight there. You got to respect showing fight at this stage of the inning. He's not going to back down. It's going to make UMMC bet all of these 4.4 overs.
Absolutely. Nor should you expect him to. Just the pride of a professional athlete alone will make him fight for these last several.
This one tucked into the offside. Make it 3 runs left in this contest. And again, Samp Army would have to go back to the drawing board and try to figure out what's the batting order, what's the batting formula they need to go in with, what intent, how can they up the ante, because being at around 110 is not going to win you matches here. We've seen the first match won by a score of 180. Even in the second innings, 150 was the total. This one pushed straight to short mid-wicket. And UMMC showed that they could probably get up to a 150, 160 mark as well.
Well, Samp Army kept losing wickets at a very regular pace, at regular intervals, and they never got the opportunity to really build a partnership. And towards the back end of the innings, when they should have been accelerating, it really just felt more like reconnaissance than anything else.
Well, this one's picked up over the top, and that'll be the end of it. 4 runs for Nitish Kumar, who's had a good day with the bat in hand. And UMMC, they walk away with a very comprehensive win.
Shadley Van Skalkvik getting it just a touch too straight, and Nitish Kumar only too happy to help that over the onside. The ball racing away for 4. So victory for the UMMC Knight Riders by 7 wickets. Pretty easy victory in the end. And we'll have the scorecard coming up shortly. I think just more than anything else, this game effectively felt like it was finished about halfway through.
Yeah, again, we talked about it for starting out with the ball. UMMC never let Samp Army get comfortable. And then with the bat in hand, they just took the attack to Samp Army, never really waited for anything to come. And they were led by Unmuk Chand and Noman Anwar, who got off to hot starts and let that all the way through. Again, you can see it there. Unmuk Chand, 43 from 32. Noman Anwar, 22 from 17. A couple of glorious shots. Jaskar Malhotra had the 1 push shot, but other than that, really didn't find much. Nitish Kumar, though, showed off the switch hits and reverse all the innovation. Angelo Pereira, the 1-4 over the top of extra cover. Again, very comprehensive for UMMC.
No question. And the bowlers, you know, not a whole lot to write home about. I think up the bowlers, the one that looked to me like he was the most impressive was Fani Samadri. He had the lowest economy rate, 4.67, and took that 1 wicket. But, you know, 1 wicket each for Shadley Van Skalkvik and Kartik Gatepali. But all along, it was just going to be always UMMC's game, and the only question appeared to be at what point was the game going to be finished. So a pretty comprehensive victory in the end for UMMC.
Well, that does it for the second match of this MLC Champions Open. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's play. 2 matches today. We'll be right back here tomorrow with 2 more matches in this Champions Open. Again, that will lead into a draft next Sunday. Thank you so much. And for Brian Walters, for Peter Della Penna, for Nick Hill, Uttama Chandi, and for Roddy in the truck, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys soon.